I took a step in to see, what was moving, if anything at all. I could have been seeing things, and boom. I've heard people say that before. It's like, oh, I thought I was going to die. And I never knew what that feeling was like until September 12th, 2010. Getting blown up in Afghanistan, stepping on an IED and thinking the whole world owed me something because look at what I did for you. What did you expect? You're a Green Beret and you're an engineer. You're at the front and you're clearing for IEDs and mines. You want to go to Ukraine? They were like, no, absolutely not. I said, I need you to quit thinking you're so badass when you're not. He's like, let me let you in on a little secret. People don't go home and think about Ryan Hendrickson.
Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. He's a veteran of multiple branches of service. What I extrapolate from all your different branches of service is basically fuck the Marines. You're deployed multiple times to Afghanistan, Iraq, South Central America, really all over the world. Recipient of numerous awards and commendations, including a Silver Star, 4 Bronze Stars, Purple Heart, and an Army Com with Valor. He's the founder and CEO of Tip of the Spear Landmine Removal, and he's also the author of the book Tip of the Spear, which we're going to dive into. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Ryan Hendrickson.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm definitely stoked to be here. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I know you had to fly out of Florida early this morning to make it happen. I appreciate you carving the time out.
Worth it.
Yeah, much appreciated. What's the last full book that you've read?
So the last full book that I read was actually, I finished it up on the flight, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I've been, like I said, binge watching your episodes, making sure I was prepared. But I've been wanting to read this book for a while. It's called American Heroes. And so it's these short stories of what American soldiers, the men and women that make up our armed services, have done, and from World War II all the way up to OEF, OIF.
Oh, neat.
And so it goes from Bronze Stars with Valor all the way up to the Medal of Honor. And just listening to these different accounts, these different stories, because it's very easy, I think, as a service member to get very tunnel visioned into your, for instance, with, in my experience with your battalion, with your company and with your ODA team. And you kind of forget that so many other people have done and sacrificed so much for our countries, or for our country, and the freedoms that I hope we still love here coming up real soon. So,
I know it. It makes me think of one thing to add to that I find I think of is so many people that have come before us, what they did, but also with so little. Mm-hmm. I think we're pretty spoiled between funding and technology and even national support. It hasn't always been that way. Even going back to, Vietnam, I think most people can associate with kind of a lack of supporting the troops. But even back like in World War I, there was a very different mentality towards service members where they weren't held in nearly as high of a regard. Yeah,
and I mean, especially just looking back at, some of my favorite stories come out of the Vietnam era, the MAC-VSOG, and just seeing our forefathers, what made Green Berets, and seeing what they did with what they had, and the by, with, and through, and force multiplication, and everything like that. That's just awesome.
Yeah, so, I agree. John Wayne, right?
Yeah.
Fucking Green Berets. What's something you wish you were better at?
I guess I didn't prep for that one. I actually, you know what? Tell you the honest truth, I would have to say my relationship with God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I've been a Christian, most of my life, but I would say I'm a born again Christian. And so in my past, I think I would use God as kind of the genie in the bottle. when I need you, be there for me and do whatever I need. But when things are going good, just kind of stay out of my way.
It's like faithful when it's convenient kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'll do my thing, you do your thing. But when I say, oh wow, I really fucked that up, I need forgiveness, just forgive me. No questions asked. Well, over the last, I would say since the withdrawal of Afghanistan, I've really started to correlate or connect my higher purpose and a higher service to my faith. Yeah. And so if I could be better at anything, which I'm working on, it's, I'm a dumbass and a knucklehead, so nothing comes easy for me, but it would be my relationship with God. Yeah. I would have to say. Yeah.
I got a lot of respect for that. If time travel were possible, where would you go and when and why?
MACV-SOG. And I would say, so there's a few, I guess, heroes in the regiment, and one of them that rings, a bell for me is like Paris Davis. And so he actually saved Billy Waugh's life on a rice paddy in Vietnam. Wow. Yeah. One of the missions, actually that was the mission that, unfortunately, fast forward to 2019, he finally got the Medal of Honor for it. Oh, wow. I don't want to go into the reasons, why before, but if you know Paris Davis, then probably what some of the reasons were why he wasn't awarded it in the 60s. Yeah. But he's a hero in the regiment, and he was always somebody that I kind of, I read about, I knew about, and it was like, okay, that would be somebody that I would 100% want to work with, want to experience that operational tempo with. People like John Strecker-Meyer, just the MACV-SOG world in the 60s. I guess, a lot of people would say, I'd go back and I would change this, or I would do this, or I really messed this up. I want to, undo this and this. And I've left the path. I've left the F5 tornado path of destruction in my life, but I believe it's built me up to who I am today. And so I don't think I would go back and change any of that, tell you the truth. And so, yeah, I think if I had the opportunity, I think it would be serving with some of these legends like, Billy Waugh, Paris Davis, something like that. So.
When you say you've left a F5 path of destruction, is there a single biggest fuck up that stands out as being the most epic that comes to mind?
There's a lot of them. I would say living my life for many, many years as a self-centered, selfish little boy. Even though age said I was a man, I was not. I was a child.
In what way?
Just how I approached everything in life. So I was a victim, a huge victim of circumstances, from things that happened when I was a child to even, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but, getting blown up in Afghanistan and stepping on an IED and thinking the whole fucking world owed me something because look at what I did for you, and then in the very end, strong talk from my dad, it's, nobody owes you a thing, son. You're not owed anything. Like, you got to understand, like, people are going to tell you, thank you for your service, until it's just so exhausting that they can't anymore. But your injury isn't putting food on their table. It's not, supporting their family or what they need in life. And he's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to tell you this, but I have to. He's like, you need to get the fuck over yourself. You're so stuck on yourself that that you think you're owed something. He's like, you're not. He's saying, he's like, I thought I raised you better than this, but life's hard, son. Yeah, you got dinged up. You think this is the worst that's ever happened? It's like, it's not. He's like, is it the worst that anyone's ever going to go through? Nope. There's going to be guys that are a lot worse off than you. Yeah. He's like, but the fact that you're trying to force people to understand what you went through when it's absolutely impossible to, and you're trying to fill this entitled void this victimized, entitled void, because entitlement's dangerous, especially with veterans, especially with the withdrawal of Afghanistan, is you get this entitlement. Like, look at what I've done for you. Look at what I did for this country. And I understand it. I got it. I'm not talking down about entitlement that a lot of veterans have right now at all. But what I'm saying is it's dangerous, because entitlement is an impossible void to fill. I mean, look at our country right now. These kids that are running around burning down cities because X, Y, and Z.
It's contagious too, I think.
It's extremely contagious, and it's easy to feed off of.
Yeah.
But when you don't get that entitlement void filled, you become victimized by your own entitlement. And then victimization turns into depression. And then you're trying to substitute what you think you need through substance or whatever it is, until you've gotten to a point to where you have nothing else that can help you. And that's where a lot of people self-select. And that's the dangers of entitlement.
Hey guys, I want to take a minute to tell you about the Mic Drop Patreon, where you can get the real mic drop experience the way it's meant to be seen. You get completely uncensored, unfiltered, and uncut episodes with nothing held back, just raw, real conversations directly from me to you, without YouTube censorship. Plus, you'll see it days before anyone else, with early premieres and exclusive bonus content that you won't find anywhere else. You get behind-the-scenes access to the show, including pre- and post-show footage, with me and the guest both in studio and on location, depending on what the guest is into and what we have going on. On top of that, we've got tons of Patreon-only perks, mic drop swag, access to exclusive merch, and the chance to submit your questions to be asked at the end of every episode. You'll also get a sneak peek at our upcoming guests, so you'll know who's in the studio weeks before anyone else. We're constantly releasing new features and dropping new content based on what you want to see. For our top tier members, you get the same Mic Drop Challenge coin that all of my guests receive from the upcoming show, which will never ever be for sale. We've got quarterly merch that's sent out directly to you, a monthly Zoom call with me where we talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, and an active group chat where we all shoot the shit on a daily basis. All of that for just a few bucks a month to support the show. Right now, we're also offering a 10% discount off an annual subscription, which means that you get more than a free month. I want to say thank you to everyone who has already signed up. Your support means that we get to keep bringing you the content that you love. So if you haven't yet, hit the link in the description or go to patreon.com/micdrop and join the team. I'll see you guys in there. Thank you.
Since the Civil War, dogs have stood alongside our military, proving to be indispensable partners. Our military prioritized ensuring proper canine nutrition for optimal performance, recognizing its vital role in mission success. Team Dog embodies that standard, offering science-based, customizable meal plans tailored to your dog's unique needs. Developed by a former Navy SEAL and canine trainer, Team Dog Food ensures the highest quality nutrition for our canine companions. Improve your dog's well-being. Be your dog's hero with Team Dog.
Can you go into self-selection?
Suicide. Veteran, specifically veteran suicide.
Yeah.
And, you know, for the people listening out there, I'm not saying that veterans, because of this entitlement and victimization, they choose this path. I know there's a lot of demons, but a lot of the mindset comes from, number one, you don't have a purpose anymore. Purpose is everything for a veteran. So you don't have a purpose, a sense of service to others, which creates an entitlement for a lot of people, including myself. I am talking out of experience, not out of what I've seen other people do, but I'm talking about Ryan Hendrickson here.
Yeah.
And so you get this entitlement, like, look at what I've done for you. Look at what I did for this country, just to, you know, in my personal experience, just to leave Afghanistan the way we did. Look at, you know, the brothers we left behind and everything like that. So I become entitled to something that I can't control. There's literally nothing that I'm going to be able to do about it. I can make my voice heard. I can get on podcasts and talk about it. And there's a lot of people, you know, that agree and have the same ideas that I do. But then that entitlement, you become so entitled, when you can't get that void filled, you become a victim of your own entitlement. And a lot of it is, it's not founded. It's like, well, look at what I did for you, son. Coming from my dad, he's like, son, you volunteered. Okay? This wasn't my war in Vietnam. You volunteered. It's like, yeah, but, I got blown up. I bled for my country. I did all this other stuff. He goes, and everybody respects that. But still, and I'll never forget him saying this when I was in the hospital bed. This was after his first remark when he walked in. He goes, oh, yeah, that looks bad. Well, figured it'd probably happen. But he was like,
thanks, Dad.
Yeah, he was like, what did you expect? You're a Green Beret and you're an engineer. You're at the front and you're clearing for IEDs and mines. He's like, I mean,
what did you think
it's kind of in the details there. He said, you need to celebrate more that you're alive, but I just kept focusing on the fact of everything I lost, but not the fact of, number one, I'm alive. And number two, I got the reset button in life. I expired twice on, the first fob we got to, whatever roll it was, roll 2, roll 3, I don't know. And, but I got the reset button. And he's like, you're so focused on what you think you lost, but in the end, did you really ever even have it? And it took me actually years to dissect those, that statement right there, to realize everything I'm trying to hold on to, life and death, I never actually even had it.
Yeah. So it sounds like that conversation was a turning point, but it was a gradual one in terms of you really absorbing all of it, or was it more of a light switch moment?
I would say at the time that my dad and I had this, so the conversation came, I'm in the hospital. I finally make it to Brooks Army Medical Center. After, I stepped on an IED in Afghanistan, September 12th, 2010. And finally make it to the hospital, everything like that. And I just remember we were going, I went through the high of, the reception, or, wow, you did it. You made it. You're here. You're alive. Look at this stuff. You saved these guys, whatever. Once that dopamine or that adrenaline kind of wears off about, kind of the artificial praise that you get for being alive, you're now stuck in a hospital bed, in my case, 4 months, but now you're stuck with your thoughts and yourself, and lots of pain. And pain, from my experience, pain causes you to really do some really serious thinking on life. And no, I was just heading down some really bad, not really rabbit holes, just paths. And my dad, one day, I don't know, maybe it was 2 months after I was there, he said, we got to have a talk, son. He said, what you're going through right now, I got it. A lot of guys have gone through this. I understand it. He said, but it's a dangerous path. And he said, it's one that I don't think you're going to be able to come back from. And he said, what I mean is this. He says, you have 2 choices in life right now. Number one, you can continue being a victim of your injuries. You can continue being a victim of your circumstances. And there's no one here that would blame you. Nobody would blame you. Look what you did. You stepped on an IED, at war for your country. He said, but you're becoming a victim of your circumstances. And he said, let's face it, these are your interpretation of your circumstances that is convoluted by everything that you're taking in, whether it's from movies or what people are telling you, whatnot like that. But in the end, he's like, yeah, you got a nasty wound. It happens to a lot of people. You don't have to be in war to go through something tragic like this. But the problem is you're going down this path and you are entitled. You feel that you deserve something because of this perceived situation that you're in right now. He said, and when this entitlement doesn't get filled, because it's impossible to fill entitlement, he said, you're going to become a victim of your entitlement. And let me tell you how this is going to work. He said, you're going to start to push everybody away around you. because they don't understand it. You're going to try and force them to understand. Look at what I went through. Look at what I did for you. Your freedoms, you're this, you're this, you're this. He said, go down the list. He said, you're going to try and force people to understand and try to fill that entitlement void with what other people think about what you did, but it's impossible. He said, and when that entitlement void doesn't get filled, he said, you're going to become a victim of your entitlement, and you're going to push everybody away from you, and you're going to seclude yourself. And you'll probably go for a substance to numb it. He said, knowing you, probably be alcohol. And I was like, damn. And then he said, then when you have nothing left, you're going to be sitting there with your thoughts one day. I don't know. Could be a year. Could be 20 years from now. But you're going to be sitting there alone and looking back that you just destroyed your entire life, but worse, everybody around you. And he said, you're going to kill yourself. He said, I don't think you have the strength not to. He said, or you can use this experience and you can use this pain. But let's be realistic about it. You have the reset button. Most men in life would love to have a reset. They would love to be able to go to the brink of death and be like, well, definitely, yeah, let me do things better the next time around. He said, you have a golden opportunity to use this experience, use this pain, use this to make yourself stronger. But he said, don't make yourself stronger for you. He said, make yourself stronger to help other people. And he said, that's the only thing that's going to save your life. Because if you continue down this victimized path you're on, I'm going to lose the son. I don't know when, but I will. He said, you need to take this situation, as bad and as dark and as painful as it is, what you're going through right now. He's like, you need to own it, and you need to use it to make yourself stronger to help other people. And I wouldn't say it was a light switch moment, but it's still, that conversation with my dad is something that I live by today. Especially when things get hard. It was like, okay, I need to take a step back and look at it. Am I becoming victimized by this, or am I entitled to something, or am I actually using this to make myself stronger to where I can possibly help some other people out? And it has. It's over the years since I got injured, went through some catastrophic lows before I started to climb myself out of my self-dug ditch. I literally took an excavator, dug a 100-foot ditch, and was like, I'm jumping in it because I have to, because nobody understands me. It's like, you don't have to jump. Just stay out of the ditch.
Did your dad go through anything similar to give you that advice, or was that?
He did. Yeah. So, my childhood was pretty rough. And
if you could, before we get into childhood, a little off tangent, which is, of course, okay. I'll just burn through these lightning round questions quick.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No. Do you have a favorite quote?
I do, actually. That one, yeah. So, if you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But never quit moving forward. And that's Martin Luther King.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Do you have an everyday carry in Florida that you rock most of the time?
I'm so happy you spelled out everyday carry, because I was asked, what's your EDC one time? And I was like, my what? Yeah. Because most people would be like, oh, well, you're a Green Beret, you got to be a gun nut. I'm not.
Yeah.
But yes, a Sig Sauer P365.
Yeah. I got the same thing in my bag right here. But
yeah, great little weapon system. Yep.
What time do you get up, and what do the first 3 hours look like?
It depends on how long I've been on calls with partners in Ukraine or Eastern Europe. So usually I'm up at 7 a.m. But if I've been burning the midnight oil till 3-4 in the morning, it could be 9 a.m.
Yeah.
But the first 3 hours, I'm usually fasting at that time, and it's my attempt to try and limit the dad bod, even though I don't have kids. But so I'm usually fasting at that time. And
is that considered cultural appropriation if you have a dad bod and don't have children?
I don't know. I mean, maybe I identify as a dad or something.
I'll take it.
I got fur missiles.
Yeah.
So that's kind of in our puppy.
Yeah.
Man, I think I am a dad because this guy, jeez.
Yeah.
But yeah. So it depends on calls, but between 7 and 9, and then yeah, it's gym, and after the gym, it's cold plunge, and then it's basically let me get back to mainly putting out NGO fires, with what we got going on in Ukraine and stuff like that. But yeah, it would just depend on how long I've been up that night.
Yeah. We'll definitely get into the Ukraine NGO stuff to what you can. This one's not on the lightning round, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just because I know you're not prepped for it. What is something about you that would surprise most people?
Yep. Wasn't prepped for that one. Something about me that would surprise. Oh, got it right off the bat. Yeah. Karaoke.
Really?
I love
that's fucking great.
Karaoke.
Like to do it or to observe it?
To sing.
Really?
I love it.
Are you a good singer?
No.
You just like doing it?
I just absolutely love it.
Do you have a favorite karaoke song that you like to sing?
Kings of Leon, Sex on Fire.
That's fucking great.
Yeah.
That's your go-to?
Yeah.
I love it.
And I'm trash.
Yeah. That's fucking beautiful.
Yep.
Tired of squeezing into stiff dress pants at that holiday party? This season, unwrap the gift of comfort with the Game Changer pants from Public Rec. The office pants that look like Monday but feel like Sunday. Imagine clocking in while feeling as cozy as if you were still in bed sipping hot cocoa. With a soft hand feel and smooth drape, these pants are fan favorites for a reason. Whether you're closing deals in the boardroom, navigating holiday travel, or mingling at company parties, the Game Changers will keep you looking sharp and feeling great. Public Rec is the ultimate men's clothing brand for blending comfort and style seamlessly, and trust me, you will not be disappointed. Stay comfortable this holiday season without compromising style, because with Public Rec's Game Changer pants, you really can have it all. And for a limited time, our listeners get 20% off their entire order with the code MICDROP, all one word, all caps, at publicrec.com. That's 20% off with code MICDROP at publicrec.com. I will say, they sent me these Game Changer pants and some shirts, and legitimately, most of the time, like if I'm dressed like with what I'm wearing on shows, or, if you go on your Sunday best at church or whatever, the first thing you want to do when you get home is change out of those clothes. One of the great things about Public Rec, especially these Game Changer pants, you don't feel the need to change out of them. You get home and you can go right into relax mode. So it's a phenomenal brand, great products, super comfortable, but they still look sharp. And I encourage you to go to publicrec.com. That's code MICDROP, all one word, all caps, for 20% off. As you guys know, sleep is a huge component to recovery and really all aspects in life. And it's something that a lot of us have struggled with, for a lot of our lives, frankly. As you know, I've been a big proponent of Beam, which is a hot cocoa that, you drink before you go to sleep. And it's helped tremendously in terms of hours of sleep maintained, as well as the quality of sleep. Today, my listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder, which is their science-backed hot cocoa for sleep, and it's got no added sugar. Better sleep has never tasted better. As you know, other sleep aids can cause next-day grogginess and just make you feel crappy, but Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, and apigenin, also melatonin, to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling refreshed. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/MicDrop, all caps, all one word, and use code MicDrop, all one word, all caps, at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/MicDrop and use code MicDrop for up to 40% off. Who doesn't like being comfortable in their own clothes? One of the things that I think I suffer from, and a lot of people do, is wanting to be comfortable, but not looking like you're comfortable. That's why I'm a big fan of Mack Weldon and their clothing. It's kind of a secret weapon in terms of the timeless classic style that has, it's infused with performance fabric as well as hidden details. They're clothes that fit just right. They look like they're business casual, but they're comfortable like sweatpants and lounge around clothes, which I really enjoy. It's just kind of the best of both worlds. I've gotten some pants and some shirts from them, and they're super comfortable, and I love wearing them, especially in the Texas summer heat. They're breathable, but they fit well and wick away the moisture. It's really great stuff. Usually the performance fabric stuff that I've seen in other brands are it's either really shiny material or it just kind of looks off. It looks like it's somewhere in between pants and sweats, and it just kind of has a weird vibe to it. With the Mack Weldon stuff, you don't get that at all. It just, again, has a very business casual kind of feel to it. I enjoy their stuff a lot, and I think you guys will too. You can get timeless looks with modern comfort from Mack Weldon. Go to mackweldon.com and get 25% off your first order of $125 or more with the promo code MicDrop. That's all caps, all one word, MicDrop. That's at Mack Weldon, mackweldon.com, and the promo code is MicDrop, all caps, all one word. Get you some Mack Weldon, and you will not regret it. Guys, as you know, I work with a number of different products. One that's easily the most near and dear to my heart from a cause standpoint and a personal relation standpoint is Bubs Naturals. The hat on the coffee table sitting right in front of me belonged to Glenn Doherty. It was a John Deere hat that I gave him. He had it when he tragically passed in Benghazi. And I was fortunate enough to get it back from one of the co-owners of Bubs. He sent it back to me to be able to keep. Bubs Naturals is a tribute to Glenn. He was one of he's kind of that guy that was everybody's best friend. I met several people that considered him his best friend, and he was a guy that was impossible not to like, and just caused happy waves that rippled through every community he was ever a part of. His nickname was Bub, and that's where Bubs Naturals comes from. But it's a lifestyle brand. It's inspired by Glenn. They give a ton to charity. They've donated over $200,000 to charitable causes since their inception in 2018. On Veterans Day, 100% of the proceeds go to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation, which does phenomenal work helping active duty and children of lost active duty members go to college or scholarships that they've donated a ton, and they also are heavy into the recreation space of helping people do that, because that's what Bub was all about. They have collagen peptides, which I put into my morning routine every single morning, as well as the functional creamer / MCT oil that goes into it as well. They have hydrate or die electrolyte drink mixes, which are great for pre-workout, during workout, and post-workout to get all the added sodium, potassium, magnesium, etc. that's required when you deplete it. And they now have Bubs Brew, which is a specialty organic coffee that is also very, very good. It's USDA organic, fair trade. It's Whole30 approved, which is the first time that's happened. It's free of yeast, mold, and aflatoxins. Small lot roasted, guaranteed fresh, and it tastes great. Biggest thing is Bubs is a family company. The way that they started is, again, super close to my heart, with him being one of my closest friends for a long time. And I just can't say enough good things about that company, of the product that they put out, why they started, what they give back to veteran communities and the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. And I encourage you to go to bubs.com, and now there's a landing page specifically for Mic Drop listeners. Just enter the code Mike, M-I-K-E, all caps, and you get 20% off your first purchase at bubsnaturals.com. So that's www.bubsnaturals.com/Mike. And you can check out the Mic Drop landing page and go support an amazing cause. Where are you originally from?
Little town outside of Eugene, Oregon, Lowell, Oregon. So, yeah, huge Ducks fan. Go Ducks.
What was that like growing up there, and siblings, parents, dynamic, the whole?
So the whole grunge era,
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest, Kurt Cobain, Alice in Chains, stuff like that. So it was kind of during that era. Oregon is definitely not what I remember it as, growing up now, just politically I'm speaking. But Oregon, it was great. I mean, Lowell, Oregon is what I consider my hometown. But the reason for that is it's because it's the one place that I stayed for the longest. So I actually had 5 years in Lowell, Oregon. And so that's what I consider my hometown and where I'm from. But we grew up dirt poor. And so it was moving all over the place from Northern California to all over Oregon.
What did your parents do to kind of direct that nomad status?
So it was just my dad at that time. Yeah, my dad and Tia had split.
Like a stepmom or just his girlfriend?
That's my mom. So
okay.
But they had split, and it was there was bad stuff that happened.
I noticed you called her Tia and not your mom.
Yeah.
You want to go into that?
There was just there was some rough times growing up, and there was definitely some things that I had learned about later on in life that I probably don't want to get into too much because I'll put it to you this way: for my dad to get full custody over my sister and myself, in the Northwest, it's you can do the math on it.
Yeah. In terms of whatever you're comfortable talking about, with all the bouncing around and just never really being in one place more than for just a few years, was there a kind of dynamic or a routine, or was it just every day was different or every month was different? Like what were you into and what was growing up in that environment like?
Yeah. So, going back to what I remember. So Northern California, my dad's chasing logging jobs, and spotted owl thing comes out and everything comes to a screeching halt, especially in the logging industry. And then, my dad, when I was young, my dad was a real bad guy. Just very, never violent towards us, but violent towards everything around us,
Like a bad temper?
Yeah, drunk, and stuff like that. And so my dad's story, where, going back a little bit when you asked me, had my dad gone through something similar to that? So there was an instance, and I remember bits and pieces of this. My sister remembers it more, but my dad had drove my sister Wendy and I to my Uncle Steve's house, and he had dropped us off there, and he was like, take care of my kids. And he was heading out to kill himself. And so he has the vehicle parked alongside the road, and this car pulls up behind him, and a guy gets out, and, my dad, pissed drunk, trying to get the courage to do it. Car pulls up behind him, guy gets out, and, said, hey, is there, you need any help? Is there any problems? And then I guess the guy saw what was going on in the car. And the way my dad puts it is the guy said, looks like you do need a little bit of help. Looks like you're out of options. He said, let's talk. And the guy was actually the preacher at the church in the local town. And my dad found God that night.
Wow.
And so going from this, this very violent, angry man that, still had not left Vietnam mentally, to, who he became as a Christian, that's where my dad gets his, where he was able to talk to me when I was going through my really, really dark times after being injured, and some of the paths that I was going down. It was the experiences that he had. So so fast forwarding, that's, what my dad, he found God and everything like that. So now we're traveling around. We're, it's the 80s, poor. We're moving all over the place. There was a point in time we had lived in this kind of like a shack, and it didn't have power or water. My sister, who's older than I, we used to go down to the river, and I'm just a little kid, and scoop buckets of water, bring it up, and they heat it up on the fire and everything like that. And that was for drinking water and whatnot. So it was, I remember a bit of that. My sister knows more of it, but all the way up until, I was, I want to say it was 5th grade, and we lived in a tent for 6 months. And let me tell you about embarrassing school bus pulling up to. Now, it was a decent tent. It was, kind of like an Alaskan tent, but a little more rednecky-ish, I guess you could say. But, so moving around as much as I did and growing up kind of how I did, number one, I didn't realize the blessing in all that because I was so stuck on what I didn't have. And I didn't realize how, this was actually setting me up for success in my future. But I would say when it came into, what was normal for me or what I enjoyed to do, that all kind of clicked when I finally got to Lowell, Oregon as an 8th grader. And then I was introduced to wrestling and football. And so that's when I actually realized, that's when my life started to click. Like, this is what kids do. You go to school and you go and you play sports, and, you do this kid stuff instead of what we were doing every couple of years, moving place to place to place, or, I'm living with this family member so they can make ends meet over here, or, whatnot. Now I'm in one spot for, 4, almost 5 years. And so that's what I consider my home. That's where I'm from. And, I just, when I got introduced to wrestling and football, I just dove into it, and it became a part of my life, although I wasn't that good. Yeah. But I really, I think the team atmosphere of it and the competitiveness, I just found out how competitive I was and how good it felt to compete in a physical sport, whether it's me getting my ass kicked in wrestling or me getting pancakes slammed in football. Although I sucked, I loved it.
Yeah. Were either of them avenues where you were good enough for it to at least be a possibility to go on to college to do either one?
I guess I don't guess. Absolutely not.
Okay.
But let me tell you my path that I had. All right. So this is the path I had laid out for myself in, I think it was a sophomore year in high school. So I was going to finish up high school, probably like a 2.0 GPA, something like that, just enough to graduate. But I was so good at football that I was going to go and play for the Oregon Ducks. And then from the Oregon Ducks, the Seahawks were going to draft me, and I was going to be a running back for the Seahawks and win a bunch of Super Bowls. That's what I thought. Reality check. Slow, short, zero field vision, hit everybody on the field but the guy with the ball, and slow. Oh, and no field vision. Yeah. So my coach, he's like, man, I have no position, nose tackle. So, after racking up probably 150 yards and penalties, I had a lot of sacks, but I just wasn't good. But football was my passion. Wrestling, I enjoyed the competitiveness of it, but I was actually kind of naturally a better wrestler, but I never really took it seriously. And I did decent. I went to state one year, and it was like, okay, great. But yeah, I mean, I just kind of floated through wrestling to where I could get my next tryouts for the Seattle Seahawks to recruit me straight out of high school. Yeah, and it never quite worked out that way.
Yeah. Well, it's important to dream, right?
Realistic expectations.
Yeah. At what point did the kind of epiphany enter your mind as it relates to joining the military, and what inspired it?
You're going to like this one. So military has always kind of been, not pushed on me, but it's been very well
Heavily suggested.
Yeah, by my dad. And, from growing up playing Rambo in the backyard, shooting the neighbor's cows with paintballs, and then he comes out with rock salt, and that's not very fun.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But so the recruiters, they start to make their rounds through, the school and stuff like that. And I'm a senior, and what was it? It was the Air Force recruiter first. And he saw my, it was 96. And he saw my test scores for the ASVAB, and he's like, oof, no.
That's going to be a hard sell.
Yeah, he's like, you're cute. No. And believe it or not, the Army, they actually didn't need anybody back then.
Really?
It was like,
peacetime, pre-9/11.
Yeah, we can get you in like 8 months, a year. And I was like, well, what am I going to do in the meantime? So I was leaning towards the Army because my dad, he was in the Army. And then the Marine recruiter came in, and this guy was so angry for no reason.
Yeah.
He was just pissed. And he was like, none of you have what it takes to be a Marine. You don't have what it takes to be a Marine. You think you're tough enough. You don't have what it takes to be a Marine. And so I took it as advice. I was like, okay, thank you for letting me know. I really appreciate that. And so, he saved me, of being embarrassed in boot camp for not having what it takes to be a Marine. But the Navy recruiter,
who was wearing a wig and lipstick at the time.
Oh my God, this guy comes in. No, it was before then, but this guy comes in.
It's always been a thing in the Navy.
And he was like, God, we just get to talking, and then, he sees I'm interested. He's showing me, look at all these ports I've been to, and you like foreign girls, and I'm an 18-year-old kid. I'm like, of course.
What a selling point.
But he's like, you ever seen Top Gun with Tom Cruise? I was like, yeah. He goes, you ever seen Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen? Yeah. He goes, that's what the Navy is. I was like, fuck, sold.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I didn't do any of that. I was a bosun's mate on a couple ships. But, definitely it's not an experience that I would go back and undo.
Yeah.
But I can never go back and do
it again.
Mid-90s.
Yeah.
On a ship, boiler-fed ship that was commissioned in the 60s in the Persian Gulf multiple times.
What ship were you on?
The USS Camden, USS Shreveport, and the Guam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you do four years in the Navy, and then took a couple years off, then joined the Air Force?
Yeah, so the Air Force was actually kind of a marriage decision. So my wife at the time was in the Army and getting out.
How did you meet a girl in the Army while you were in the Navy and get married?
So I went from, so I was stationed in Bremerton, Washington.
Oh, okay.
And even though the Shreveport and the Guam were in Norfolk, but I did a Westpac and a Med Cruise, if that, tells you. But so I was on the USS Camden in Bremerton, Washington. And we met at Fort Eustis, Virginia. When she was going through, that's right. We met at Fort Eustis, Virginia, when she was going through her captain or her career course there for officers, whatever, for transportation officers in the Army. And then relationship carried over. She got stationed at Fort Lewis. So I went out, we got married. So then I went out to Bremerton and, getting out of the Navy, tried my hand as a civilian was, not good.
What did you do?
Believe it or not, I want to send a quick shout out to Tom Cruise and Cocktail, but I went to bartending academy.
Fucking A.
And I worked at Red Lobster as
Really?
a bartender.
Oh, shit.
Trash, like straight up. Here's the automatic margarita machine, and So it was great, but I was just like this. 9/11 had kicked off because I got out of the Navy April 2001, and 9/11 kicked off, and this nagging feeling of like there's got to be something that I can do. And now we're building up for Iraq, And so January 2003, I'm like, well, I want to join the Army and go do this. And, my ex at the time, by the way, great woman. She's an ex because, I was just a piece of shit, but I'll leave it at that. But she was like, no, I'm done with the Army. Let's move on let's do something else. And so we agreed upon the Air Force. And so it's like, okay, join the Air Force.
Did she join the Air Force too, or no?
No. When she got out, she got out. Yeah. So she was a captain when she got out, and when she was done, she was done. But so, I joined the Air Force, and I was an ammo troop in the Air Force. And again, it's like being a bosun's mate in the Navy. I have such great memories and experiences, but I wouldn't go back and do it again. Kind of thing. And then when we got divorced, I put in a packet to go blue to green, because at that time, like, I remember going to the personnel office, kind of like an S1, and there was this poster on the wall, like, guy in uniform, half, Class A's, half Air Force dress blues, and it says, go blue to green. If you're in these career fields, you're in an overman career field, and you can transition directly over to the Army. And so I was actually going to the S1 office to put in my divorce paperwork, and like, I guess I'm single now, kind of thing. And I saw that, and so I questioned about it. And then I talked to an Army recruiter, and they said, you're in an overman career field. You can transition straight over to the Army as an ammo troop if you want, or we have these other options, Ranger contract, X-ray contract, stuff like that. And so I remember, or infantry. And I remember thinking, I was like, well, I'm good with ammo. Infantry sounds right up my alley. That's what I think I want to do. But there was something about the 18 X-ray course, because my dad would talk about Green Berets in Vietnam, because although my dad was not a Green Beret, he was a helicopter crew chief on medevac Hueys for MACV-SOG. And so, he talked highly about it in his experiences and stuff like that. So, I'm just looking at these avenues, and it's like, well, infantry is the comfortable. I know I can do it. I have zero qualifications to even think about going and being a Green Beret. I was a bosun's mate in an ammo troop. Like, what am I, besides tromping around the woods, as a kid, like, what am I actually going to do, or what can I bring to the table? And then it goes back to another thing my dad had told me, before I joined the military. And he said, there's a story. He said, there's two old men. They're sitting on their rocking chairs, and they're waiting on death. Death is imminent. They've, aged to, a certain age, and now, it's only days or months or whatever before they pass on. He said the first old man, he's miserable. He's absolutely miserable because he let life pass him by. He never took any chances. He never failed at anything. He never did anything he could even fail at. He never risked anything at all. He always stayed in what was comfortable for him, that he knew he would always succeed at. And so he had no experiences in his life, and he was miserable because he never tried. He did nothing. Life had passed him by. And he said that he, was going to die knowing that he did nothing with his life. He said there's a second old man, and he's sitting in his rocking chair, and he's done it all. He's done everything there is to do. Right, wrong. He failed many, many times. He succeeded some. He's done everything. He risked everything. He's tried it all. He stepped out of his comfort zone. He did everything he possibly could to live this life to the best of what he knew, and his abilities. And he's tried it all. And some things, multiple things he failed at, some things he passed at. But he's done it all. And he was sitting there and he was, maybe he's drinking his beer or something like that, but he's content and he's happy because he's lived life to the fullest. There's not a single thing that he can undo and go back and be like, man, I wish I would have. And he said, I wish I would have as an old man or a death sentence, because you'll get to a certain age where you'll look back and you realize I can no longer, but I had the opportunity to. Why didn't I take the opportunity? And a lot of people, they get caught up in careers, or they get caught up in family, or they get caught up in comfort, or just everyday life. And they don't take a step back and look at, like, what do I really want to do with my life? What do I want to, when I'm that old man or woman sitting in my rocking chair, looking back on what I did or did not do at life, what am I going to be happy? And so with the 18 X-ray contract, I remember thinking, I was like, I know I'm not going to make it, but if I don't try, I'll never know. And if I don't know, it's because I didn't try. Yeah. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to give it everything I got. And in the very end, if I don't make it, which I probably won't because I bring nothing to the table, I was like, I'll be content because at least I tried and screwed around and made it.
Yeah. Was it relatively smooth sailing, or did you have any big setbacks throughout training?
No, actually, so I was never recycled, but let me tell you the biggest setback in training. And it came at Fort Benning. So I, just finished infantry basic and AIT, and I'm on top of the world. This is great. And they're like, all right, jump school's next. And I hear all these rumors about how cool jumping out of planes is and everything like that. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be the greatest thing in the world. Until I actually got up in a plane and a door was open and they were like, all right, jump number 1, go. I was like,
No shit.
I had no idea how scared of heights I was.
Wow.
Zero idea. That was looking back on there's a few things, like I was never recycled, but I was a third time go on land nav, definitely. And then, but yeah, jump school, there was something about like willingly leaving this aircraft that can easily just land and I'll just walk off it. It's fine. I don't care. I'll just land. But you want me to jump? Oh man.
Well, so did you get a boot in the ass, or how did you just end up going?
So I ended up going because the girl behind me was so excited. She's this tiny little, like 110-pound girl. And she was just amped. Wait. She's like, I can't wait. This is great. And just, it was just, and I was like, I'm a 220-pound dude. Well, I was probably athletic then, so maybe like 190 or something like that. But yeah, this girl behind me is just so amped. And man, I literally thought like the world was going to come to an end. But even to this day, I was, a lot of guys on my team would call me Bambi. And I'm a jump master as well, which is insane. Yeah. But they would call me Bambi because my knees would, when the ramp would open up. Obviously not at Benning. We didn't jump ramp, but in group, ramp would open up. My knees would start shaking really bad. There was multiple times I'd puke outside the aircraft before we'd get on. It's just crazy.
It's something that always impacted you or affected you that way?
Well, thankfully I never had to do a combat jump. So that's, a lot of people always want that mustard stain, but I gave zero fucks about that. Yeah. But every single jump in group, I was like, well, and it was this huge celebration when I was done. I'd go to like Applebee's and get the all you can eat ribs and drink beer because I was alive. And people were like, you're an idiot, dude. I'm like, wild, yes, man. I am.
Yeah. All right. So you make it all the way through, never being recycled. Did anything surprise you about the training pipeline?
Yeah, there was a couple things that surprised me. Number one, land nav. I always considered myself good in the woods, growing up, in Oregon and tromping around the woods with terrain features. I could look out and be like, oh, okay, well, if I keep this to my right, then I'm good to go. Well, North Carolina, a little bit different, especially in the draws and stuff like that. So I remember the STAR course just chewed me up. And in all the training we did, everything like that, map reading, compass and all that stuff is easy. But I drift like crazy. No idea why. I think I have a magnetic left side that just pulls me left because I could be an entire like 500 meters off from my point. And it's like I literally was on azimuth this whole time, but I'm just a drifter, I guess. But
does your junk hang to the left?
It could.
Maybe that's it.
But the biggest thing that surprised me about the Q course, and I don't want listeners to misunderstand this, so I'm going to try and say it the right way. It's not how easy it was, because it was difficult. There was especially like team week, there was gut check moments that I was like, how can a human body physically do this? But what was easy for me was everything the instructors told me to do, because I didn't have a background in it. I was like, okay, this is how you ambush. Okay, this is how you shoot. Okay, this is how you clear a house. Okay, everything they told me, right, wrong, or indifferent, that was how you did it, and that was my first time. And so I would learn from what they were telling me. I didn't have any bad habits to unlearn or combat experience, whereas in like, no, this would never work in, X, Y, and Z. I wouldn't have known. And so whatever I was told to do, it was just easy. It's like, okay, yeah, cool. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. This is exactly what goes in your rucksack. Did you read it on the whiteboard? Yeah, it's awesome. Like, I don't have to memorize anything. You put it on the whiteboard and you don't even talk to us. So I just go off the whiteboard and whatever it says to do, because I'm a very simple-minded dude. So it's like, show up with this ruck, with this stuff in your ruck. Okay. Well, how come you didn't show up with this, this, and this? Well, because you didn't tell us to do it. You said take everything from the whiteboard and go with what the whiteboard says. It's like, okay, step over here. Candidate, why do you have this, 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 and this? Well, because I know I need that for this. It's like, but the whiteboard didn't say that. Candidate, step over here. Failure to follow, directions. So for me, being simple-minded and not having a lot of bad habits from the military, it was surprisingly, like, mentally easy because, like, physically, yeah, the 120-pound rucksacks and movements for, clicks on it and stuff like that. But mentally, it was just like, okay, well, that's what you guys said to do.
Yeah. So to me, that exercise is more about, can this person do exactly what they're told? Mm-hmm. That's in the Q course, right, or during selection. Mm-hmm. Were there other exercises where they encouraged critical thinking and problem solving? Because to me, that's a big part of special operations. And
Team week.
Is that the only period, though?
No, it lasts throughout the entire Q course. So for me as an 18 Charlie, over like, what is it, about a year and a half long, year and a couple months long, something like that, without recycling. And critical thinking, teamwork, knowing when to lead, when to follow. And are you a part of the solution or are you the problem? Yeah. Because there's a lot of chest pounding war heroes that will come in there. It's like, hey, look at what I did in Ranger Regiment. Look at what I did here, here, and here. And it's okay. Can you be a part of a team? Can you be a part of something bigger? Because, a lot of things that we did in the Q course, which only gives you a small percentage of a glimpse into what you're going to do in, let's say, village stability operations in Afghanistan, where you don't have a major FOB here. And you have to figure out something as simple as, well, these villagers need water up here for their crops. How are we going to do it? Okay, well, let's figure it out. So critical thinking was huge, but the whole man concept, what chewed the most people up in the Q course wasn't the punch in the face, whether it was selection or SUT or SEER or something like that. It wasn't the punch in the face. It was the mosquito bites. It was the fly that just kept hitting you because you're constantly being assessed. Yeah. It's the whole man concept. You're always, selection doesn't stop in selection. You're constantly being assessed all the way up till you retire from the military and then go out and do something stupid as a retired Green Beret, and you're still getting assessed, Yeah. So, no, the whole man concept, critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork, all that was it was probably the biggest part of the Q course, because I saw studs. Yeah. Like Captain Americas that were just like, hey, thank you for trying out. You're just not what we're looking for. It's like, then what are you guys looking for?
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is they couldn't think. There was no critical thinking. There was no, there was no, you know, problem solving, thinking in, I hate, you know, the black and white, and then you got the gray. Everyone talks about, oh, we work in the gray. It's like, okay, cool, dude.
Yeah.
But it is a thing. It's like thinking in that in between. It's like, well, it's not quite black. It's not quite white. This is how we're going to do it. And then this is what we need to do to accomplish the mission. Backwards planning to, you know, a T. Like, okay, here's mission accomplishment. This is overall success.
Yeah.
Now, how do we get to this?
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's actually what I loved about Special Forces and being a Green Beret. It wasn't so much the shooting aspect. You know, there's two, and I joke around quite a bit. There's two kinds of Green Berets. There's your proficient shooters. And I guess cliche for, you know, the audience, two to the chest, one to the head kind of guys. And then there's guys that are like 30 from the knees up to the head. And those guys bring a lot of magazines with them. So I fell into the second guy.
Yeah.
I'll start at your ankles and I'll work up, but I'm going to drop you.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but it was the unconventional warfare. It was the reason why we were even established in the first place. You know, there's a lot of units in the U.S. military that are extremely good at shooting, best in the world. CQB, hostage rescue, direct action, DA, best in the world, some of the best in the world. Special Forces, in my opinion, humble opinion, I'll probably get tore up on the reviews, but we are not that. DA is a mission set we have, but I joined Special Forces because of unconventional warfare, working by, with, and through indigenous people, train, advise, assist, force multiply, going into a denied area and making it permissive for, you know, working through the people. Village stability operations, when we were still doing it, was absolutely amazing because we were working with these villagers, militiamen, to protect their own areas and stuff like that. Now, you know, you can get into the weeds on, well, you know, they were still working with the Taliban and stuff like that. Got it. But it's the mission set that went all the way back to working with the Montagnards in Vietnam that just, I absolutely loved it. It was working in the human domain.
Yeah.
And that's what drove me to Special Forces and being a Green Beret and because 18 Charlies, you know, you get to do demo and blow shit up. So
yeah, the OG Green Beret mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what drove me to it.
Yeah. All right. So you spent 13 more years once you made it through in SOCOM. Mm-hmm. You deployed six times to Afghanistan and 5 to other countries. Yeah.
So as a Green Beret, it was 6 times to Afghanistan. I did 2 more times as a contractor.
Okay.
But 5 to South Central America. Yes.
So obviously, you know, to try to detail 11 deployments for brevity's sake, we're not going to have time to do that. But I would love if you could kind of chronologically walk us through your career and just hit the highlights from, you know, whatever the deployment was, if there were certain missions on those deployments that stand out as being super memorable for whatever reason, good, bad, any, you know, significant operations that you were on, obviously the one where you got caught, but you know, just any of them, and just kind of walk us through your SOCOM career that way. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm glad we got 8 hours to sit here together because I'm about ready to let you know it.
Amen.
So, you know, graduate the Q course, and I get assigned just down the street at Fort Bragg to a 7th Special Forces group when we were still at Bragg. And I get to my unit, and we are getting ready to leave for Afghanistan in about, I think it was 5 or 6 months. So when we were doing pre-mission training or PMT, I remember Admiral Mullen. He was Chairman Joint Chief of Staff at the time. Yep. They flew out to our PMT site, and he basically gave us a pre-mission brief. And what I didn't realize as a young, you know, Green Beret, just, you know, completely still, because I made it through the Q course, the learning just started. You know, I had, you know, now I'm trying to actually learn, you know, team life and what we're going to be doing in Afghanistan and whatnot. So, you know, I'm just taking everything in, but we line up in formation, and Admiral Mullen, gets off one of the Blackhawks. And, I remember the team sergeants, some of the older guys, they were like, what in the fuck is going on? And it was a surprise visit. But he was flying out to visit each team or training group that was getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan. And then when I, figured out later on that day, it was in support of the surge that President Obama had, ordered, the surge into Afghanistan. So we were part of the surge, and Admiral Mullen came out to talk to us and said, hey, your company, you guys are going to a really, really bad area. And between Helmand and Aruzgan, you guys are going to be split up. And, so I just want to come out here, wish you guys luck, but also give you guys my word. Any casualty, KAWIA, I will personally come and see you. And, your family. So it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I hope that doesn't happen, because again, my mind up till that point in my military career. Now, granted, in the Navy on the USS Camden, we were the first ship to respond to the USS Cole. So I had already seen a glimpse of, oh, these people really want to kill you. And then, there was, I want to say 17 dead sailors, heroes that day from the USS Cole. And so then fast forward, it's like I didn't really, like no one's actually tried to kill me besides when I really pissed my dad off, as a kid. He wasn't trying to kill me. But
can I interrupt for one quick second?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we were on the Duluth when I was it was my first deployment as a SEAL.
Mm-hmm.
And went in and babysat the Cole for 2 months.
Yeah.
So you guys must have been there like right before us, I would imagine.
Yeah, because so it was us and the Donald Cook. And we had gone in there and we were doing so we started off with bucket brigades because the submersible pumps, something was wrong with them. It was no longer pumping water, and we were literally doing bucket brigades. And the Navy divers, a week into it, they were starting to pick the bodies out of the chow hall that was still underwater. And we were doing, what was it called? Ramp I don't know what the Navy would call it. Ramp ceremonies. So I guess, for, the bodies that they were bringing forward. And I just remember as the days went on and, the Gulf age and that heat and everything, because it's still October.
Yeah.
And I just remember the smell.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
That's wild. Small world, huh? Because we got there about 5 or 6 days after it happened. I think we were with the Tarawa amphibious readiness.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
The Tarawa, Mount Rushmore, and the Duluth.
Yeah, I remember when you guys got there. Yeah, because the Camden was on station. And
yeah, it's wild. Yeah,
I remember when you guys got there. I don't know if we were there together, but do you remember when the head of the CIA came out and spoke on the ship?
I don't, because the rotation that we had is that the Marines took the sun up to sundown shift, and we were there from sundown to sun up every night. So we were there when there was basically nothing going on, and we were in ribs circling the boat, and then we had a small communications contingent on the boat with a sniper and a 60 gunner and a Carl Gustav rocket gunner kind of on the bridge doing Overwatch type stuff. But there was really little to no activity going on the ship when we in our period of watch. But we were there for, it was like 63 days and until they pulled it out and loaded it up on that floating dry dock. Yeah,
I think we were there for maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. I got to dig back to 2000, but
I don't want to get too sidetracked. I know we got a lot to cover. I just thought it was fucking small world. We were both there at the same time, but
super small world.
Anyway,
but that was my first experience with people are trying to kill you, and some would arguably say, like, I know about Beirut and the bombings in Africa and stuff like that, but some would say the first salvo in the war on terror with Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
But so Admiral Mullen comes out and gives us this speech, and now we're doing all the workups and everything like that, and now we're heading over to Afghanistan. I'm in Afghanistan. We're starting to head out to our Firebase Tice, which is in Uruzgan province. And it's pretty significant because that was one of the first, the first bases that was set up back in the day when guys were coming in and out of their other ODA teams, and Chief Warrant Officer, I think it was Chief Warrant Officer Tice was killed, and so the base was named after him. But so that's my first duty station, and our mission, that deployment, we relieved a third group team in the Chutu River Valley. And our mission, that deployment, was basically we have a cop in this old ran down, basically farm compound that we had taken over, paid the farmer, whatever it was. And we were in daily fights, which, it's fine. That's the name of the game, especially in 2010. Especially when you are moving into areas that the Taliban hasn't seen you in before. And so, but everything, the 4 months or the 3 months leading up to that was all getting ready for this major valley clearance of the Chutu River Valley. And it was going to be a company plus 120 commandos that was going to be used. So 5 ODAs, commandos, militiamen, everything. We were going to clear this. We were going to clear the Chutu River Valley. And there was suspected, 15 to 2,000 enemy fighters in the area, but I smile at that. It could have been 25.
Yeah.
It's Afghan math, who knows?
Yeah.
But, it's, we're going to flush them out of the valley, send them up to the mountains, and then air weapons platforms are going to take care of the rest. So, but, so September, we'd been planning this mission for a while, and we kick it off September 11th, 2010. And I remember we crossed the river, the Helmand River. So we are on the west side of the Helmand River. We cross over the east side, and we're making our way to our last, probably covered, because the Taliban knew we were there, so it wasn't really concealed, but probably last covered area. And we're waiting for the green light. So we're waiting on Bagram to give us the green light. And finally, it's probably like midnight, or maybe it was still September 11th, but getting towards September 12th, we get the green light. So our ODA's mission was we were coming from the south. We were going to work our way up north. We had the commandos coming in from the central, and then the ODAs at Firebase Cobra were going to work their way down south. And so we had two ODAs, and then our ODA down here. And then the B team, or the support ODA, they were pulling Overwatch for our movement south, because we had the longest time in the valley. So we were given the area that was probably the most sketchiest, and the area that we had been in fights in almost daily for 3 months. We knew there was like a World War I style trench in the area, because we would drop bombs like crazy, only to have, within 5 minutes, that same weapon system is opened up on you. And it's like, wow, where are these guys coming from? So, so our mission, we get the green light, and now all of a sudden it's, we're making our movement towards our first objective. And our first objective was a set of like 3 to 5 compounds. I can't quite remember exactly, but I know we were broken up. We had Afghan militiamen with us, and we were broken up into different cells. And so like my cell, we had, I want to say 12 to 15 Afghan militiamen with us and 2 Americans. And then, you'd have another one up here, same number. We were dividing up the this village along the Helmand River like that. And so we had guys that were going to be clearing the trench line. We were working into the first set of compounds to get our C2 up and running, get a foothold in, make sure, IEDs and everything like that are cleared. So we could eventually move the commander and everybody over to this compound. And then guys that were moving up to the fighting positions that were up in the ridge line a little bit. So we were split up like that. But so we'd rehearsed with our Afghan militia we'd rehearse with them, days and days and days. This is what we're going to do. And this was their area. They were militiamen from this area. So they're literally liberating their own areas. So, it's probably like 3 o'clock in the morning. And we get up to our, we're 25 meters before the objective. We've taken a lot of fire from this objective before in these compounds. And so we're either going to get it, we're going to get into it, or it's going to be abandoned. And the problem is it was dead quiet. There wasn't even animals in the village. There used to be chickens running around, stuff like that. Nothing. That's a bad sign. There wasn't even a smell of like they were just here. Nothing.
But completely abandoned.
Completely abandoned. And so that's a bad thing because that means this whole place is rigged.
Yeah.
And we were already told the IED threat is pretty significant in the area.
Did you have EOD with you?
No, not on this one. So we were already told, the IED threat was significant in the area. I'm up in the front, because I'm an 18 Charlie. So, I'm with our Afghans that have, the detectors and stuff like that.
And no dogs either.
No dogs. So we get to our last, this one I will say is probably covered and concealed because we were noise and light discipline. Although the Taliban knows where you're at most of the time, we really thought like, okay, we probably are not known right now. And so we get to our last covered and concealed. And so I turn around to our interpreter, Nick, and I tell him, all right, man, just like we rehearsed. Let's go. Let's clear compound. Like I just got to go, over our headsets. Let's clear compound. Let's say 001, I guess. And he's like, okay, yeah. Turns around, tells him, and I'm standing there, probably thinking I'm like, yeah, I'm all Green Beret right here. Just Green Beret doing Green Beret shit. Life's great, and nobody's moving. I was like, okay. Nick, what's going on, dude? Yeah, come on. Let's go. Time's ticking. Tick, tick. Let's go. Turns around and tells him again. I was like, yeah. Go back to my self-absorbed. Yeah, turn around, nobody's moving. It's like, dude, what part of let's go, like, kick off? Did you not understand or execute, whatever? He's like, they don't want to go. It's like, what? They didn't, like, they have to. Like, why would they be here if they don't want to go? Like, what? So I've never encountered anything like that before, especially with an indigenous force. And he said, well, they said, he talks to him again, and they come back and they said, well, you're better trained than they are. You have better equipment. You should go first. I was like, okay, all right. If this was Texas, yeah, absolutely. I would be number one man in the door because it's my country. This is literally your village. Let's let's go. Like, I think it was called Sartutu or something like that. It's like, let's go. No. So I turned around to tell my counterpart, like, hey, man, we got a problem. These guys don't want to move on the first objective. And he grabs me before I can get anything out. And he goes, hey, go get Nick away from that compound. Like, what are you talking about? Turned back around through my nods. And Nick had moved his way down, to the breach point or doorway, I guess. I say breach point because I still want to sound like I'm relevant, but I'm not. But to the doorway of the compound, and he's like trying to wave him down. He's not yelling like, follow me or anything like that. He's just trying to wave him down. Well, he was the only interpreter we had, and we had a whole force of militiamen. So trained, yeah, but you got to have an interpreter or you just lost the entire initiative. You can't communicate with your partner force. And in a kinetic environment, that's a really bad thing. That's like fratricide stuff,
yeah.
Blue on blue. And so, I like, oh crap. So I went down, to the compound and I grabbed him by the shoulder and, I have my choice words for him, but I was like, go back to our position now. I'll cover you. And so basically you have the unknown past that doorway or the breach point. You don't know what's behind there. So I don't want to turn my back or my side to it. I want to make sure that I always have, some sort of muzzle awareness that I'm able to put rounds down range inside of that compound in case someone decides like, oh, they're here. Just woke up, let's get busy. Well, I already have that sector covered. So, I'm kind of pieing off. I don't have the whole weapon system be through, through the door because that's a no-go also. So I'm just kind of looking and I see something move in the corner of the compound. So you know how you have the actual building and then you have the compound yard, but the compound yard is like 10-foot walls and mud walls and stuff like that. So, but I see something move in the corner and, adrenaline's already, it's already super spiked because you've been in a fight, almost daily from this village right here of Sartutu. And I see something move in the corner. And so, I thinking like, I'm going to smoke this dude. No idea what was moving, but my brain overrode my common sense. And so I took a step in to see, what was moving, if anything at all. I could have been seeing things. And boom, I had stepped on a pressure plate IED that was just offset from the doorway. So you would step over the door jamb. And so what I remember from that was, actually I remember everything because I tried so hard to pass out because it hurt so bad, but I just couldn't. But so explosion happens and I am blown back out of the doorway. And again, these are from accounts from what people saw. I don't remember going airborne, but apparently I did. And so, I land and I remember the very first thought that came to my mind was, I can't breathe. And it's not that there was any damage to my lungs or anything like that. It's that ammonia from the IED and the moon dust. Like I couldn't breathe, but I couldn't move. I couldn't stand up, which probably saved my life because after I was recovered and everything, there was IEDs all over the place and I would have stumbled into another one, but I couldn't breathe. But I kept getting angry because I couldn't stand up either. And so I'm sitting here and I'm getting pissed and I'm like, what is going on here? But I can't see anything. So you're at this point in the day, where it's like, do I need nods? Do I need, that time of the morning? And it's September. So it's still, I'm not even going to try and say when BMNT was, but it was, 4 something-ish probably or something. But, I'm like, okay, I need to calm down. I need to get my breathing under control. I don't know what happened. RPG, recoilless rifle. Did one of my charges go off in my own bag? Like, what happened? But nothing hurts. I don't hurt at the time. So I'm, and again, we're talking over minutes. This is seconds, as it as it kind of unfolds. So I'm laying there, and as the dust starts to clear a little bit, and I start to control my breathing. Because again, the pain's not there. Like I've seen guys get blown up and they start screaming immediately. And so my mind is like, oh, well, I must be fine. What was that? And so, as the dust starts to clear a little bit, I'm able to look down and my boot is at a 90-degree angle to my leg. And a little backstory, I'm not the smartest kid in the world. So we'll preface this with, so I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, well, that's really weird. Wonder why my boot's at a 90-degree angle to my leg. Still, it hasn't hit me yet. And so, seconds later, I'm picking my leg up from behind my knee and my boot flops over and like the heel of my boot hits me in the hamstring. And I see these 2 glowing pearly white objects sticking out of my pant leg. And again, I was like, wonder what that is. And when it hit me, that was my tib and my fib, because your brain can't comprehend trauma like that.
Yeah. You
literally can't prepare yourself for staring down at your tib and your fib sticking out of your I guess at the time it was ACUs,
Well, so I think especially with the ringing of your bell that would have taken place also, like that would have rattled.
Yeah, I got rocked.
So.
And it was weird because it blew out my left eardrum, but I stepped on it with my right leg. So I don't get it. But so I'm looking down, and when it hit me that was my leg, and I had just stepped on an IED, like the pain flooded in, and I was trying to think. I was like, what do I say? And I'm starting to hyperventilate. And I was like, oh God. I was like, I'm hit. And I remember I looked back at my teammate, and he was like, Ryan, don't move. I said, no shit. Did you not just hear me scream and I'm hit? Yeah. Like, where am I going to go, bro? But, he's like, Ryan, don't move. We're going to get you. Get your tourniquet. And so I'm trying to put my tourniquet on, but we're packed out for 3 days, dismounted without resupply. So what do you think I'm trying to tighten my tourniquet over? Shit in my cargo pockets, all kinds of stuff. And, again, as time ticks by, I start to lose strength. And I remember laying there. And now the team, my comms are all messed up, so I can't hear what the team is doing. But I see all this commotion happening in the background because I remember, I could tilt my head back because I still had my rucksack on. And I could tilt my head back and just kind of look at everything, kind of upside down. But it just looked like controlled chaos. Guys, fingers are pointing and guys are moving here and here, and they're starting to make their way down to me, but they can't rush down to me because where there's one IED, there's 10 or 2 or 7 or 20, but there's never just one. And so they got to clear down to my position. And so as I'm laying there and I'm hearing everybody yelling, but it's coming through this tunnel, and the tunnel's getting further and further away. And I remember I laid my head back and I said, I'm going to die here today. Like, I'm going to die. And it's really weird because I've heard people say that before. It's like, oh, I thought I was going to die. Or, yeah, I just, like that show, I Survived. Yeah, wow. Some of the accounts those people have. And I never knew what that feeling was like until September 12th, 2010, early morning. And so as I'm laying there, and everybody seems like they're getting further and further away, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, how is this possible? Brand new Green Beret, 1 year in, and someone's trying to kill me, just stepped on a landmine, or IED, excuse me. And like my team is trying to make it to me. But what I didn't realize what was unfolding in the background was a complex ambush. So our overwatch position was engaging Taliban fighters that were coming down the riverbed to engage us. And they were trying to close the distance, because if I can close the distance with you, you can't drop bombs on me because you're going to drop bombs on yourself. And so I didn't realize all this was unfolding, but I remember laying my head back. And I remember thinking, I said, I know I'm going to die here today. And remember in the very beginning, I talked about God being in a genie in the bottle. I remember I reached out to God, and I thought, I looked back on my life. I had this reflection. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've seen so many movies. I'm like, oh, you're supposed to reflect on your life when you're about ready to die. Maybe that's it. I have no idea. But I was reflecting on my life, and I was ashamed of how I was going to die.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
The destruction, just being this insecure, immature little boy in a man's body, destroyed everything around me. I'm married now, got an absolute amazing wife. I know everything happens for a reason, and she is the best thing that's ever happened to me. But my ex-wife was a good woman, and I destroyed her just being a fucking child. And so I'm laying there knowing like I'm going to die here today. And I hate who I was. I hate the way I'm going to die. And so remember we were talking about my dad's advice in the hospital? That's the reset button. He said, go back to what you thought when you were laying there that day and when you thought you were going to die. He said, you can change all this. But people have asked me, and again, I know this, we're not here to talk religion, but I've been asked.
We're here to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, I've been asked quite a few times. They're like, well, how do you know God's real? And I said, well, I saw him. And so laying there that day, I'm laying on the ground, and my team, they're starting to make it to me. Finally, the team gets to me, starts cranking down the tourniquets, stuff like that. We got aircraft coming in, doing runs on the Taliban that's trying to close the distance with us. Overwatch positions, engaging them. There's panic, but it's controlled. It's like, we have to move now. Helicopter, dust off, can't land where we're at because it's too hot. The radio call was basically, we have a what is it, urgent surgical or critical surgical or something like that. Like, this guy's going to die if we don't get him out. And they said, hey, we can't land there. You guys have to move him back. We can pick him up here. That's a click away. Like, an entire air crew or one guy. Like, sorry, guys. And then I remember also when I was laying there, ICOM chatter. The Taliban were playing their jingle music that they just, they had injured me, but it's killed 375 Americans with one eye. You know how they, do all that. But I remember listening to them celebrate on the ICOM chatter, and that really stuck with me. But people were like, "How do you know God's real?" Because when I was laying there, and I was, fighting for my life, I remember I looked up, and through all the chaos, this event that's unfolding all around us, from aircraft to mortars to 50 cals to everything else. There was this eagle circling over me. It was crazy. It wasn't deterred at all. Nothing. And it was in the RAS. Like, it was insane. Like, how'd you not just get sucked up in an A-10s, but there was this eagle that was circling over me, just staying over me. And that's when I knew I was going to be okay.
Wow.
It was insane.
Did anybody else notice it?
I think I noticed it because I was so fixated on something that was normal. I wanted to see something that brought me peace. Like, give me some sense of normalcy. Something that's not deterred by the chaos unfolding around me. Give me something. And then there was this hawk, this eagle, that was just circling overhead. I don't remember how many 100 feet, but I just kept watching it. And it wasn't deterred by anything happening around me.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was insane.
How do you know about how long you were laying there? And
so it was around 5 minutes. Again, I just talked for 30 probably on it, but things were happening in seconds.
Yeah.
But it was around 4 to 5 minutes for the team to get to me. And then, we got the call from dust off. We can't pick them up right there. It's too hot. We have RPGs in the area. We can't do it. So a decision's made on the ground, and one of my dear, dear friends saved my life, Kyle Morgan. And
the former Delta guy?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. We were on the same ODA together. He saved my life. But there was a little bit of indecision on the ground. He was the senior echo. The team sergeant was shook up from the blast. I don't want to go into all that, but he just says, "Fuck it, I got it," and he picks me up. 210 pounds of awesomeness right here. He picks me up and throws me over his shoulder, and we start to make the move for a click.
At this point, I assume that nobody has administered any morphine or anything to you, or had somebody.
So fentanyl lollipop. I'm not an expert at getting blown up, so I chewed it up immediately, thinking that would get into my bloodstream faster.
Yeah.
And then they hit me with morphine, and I broke out in hives everywhere.
Oh, wow.
So I found out I'm allergic to
morphine.
Penicillin, I guess.
That's a shit way to find out.
Yeah.
Were you still in a ton of pain at that point?
The pain was, I can't even comprehend.
Yeah.
There's no scale you can put it on. And, you know, you've heard the old cliche, like, oh, I felt like I got hit by a Mack truck. There's no way I can quantify it or relate it to anything else. It was this sharp but dull, intense but calm. It was everything. Every single sense in my body was going off.
Wow.
It was absolutely insane. I don't even know what to equate it to.
Yeah. So Kyle, super stud that he is, picks you up, is fucking running you back to.
Yeah, it picks me up, and and it's uneven ground and everything like that. We have to make a few stops for him to catch his breath. He makes a few fat jokes. I won't forget that. If you listen to this, Kyle, that wasn't very nice of you. But dust off comes in, and I remember seeing the black eye come in, and it was, you know, we've put guys on dust off before, but it's different when you're getting on it. Mm-hmm. And so they load me up, and I remember, you know, we take off and we're heading to Tarankout, if I pronounced that right, TK. And I remember looking back out the door, and my team, you know, is starting to, you know, get back after the enemy. Now we've created distance, and now they're dropping 500-pounders and stuff like that.
Any idea how many of them there were, enemy fighters?
So the BDA that our ODA did, there was around 30 that were killed just from the aircraft. How many got away?
Yeah,
nobody knows.
Okay.
But I remember looking out the door, and I felt, you know, a lot of people would feel relieved. I felt ashamed.
Like you're for leaving, or
that I let the team down. Yeah. I felt this intense, almost like
you fucked up.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a.
Yeah, like I let everybody down. I just, you know,
it's an unexpected emotion. I would think, but
it was weird.
Yeah.
But I just felt so ashamed of myself.
Wow.
So disappointed that I allowed this to happen to me. That just made my team have to do all that. That, you know, caused, you know, this setback in the mission.
Is there any part of you that still feels that? Like, do you still struggle with that, or was that just in that moment?
No, that was just in that moment, because I've been through, and again, I'm not Rambo. I'm not the God's answer on combat, but I've been through my share. Yeah. You know, I got an idea of combat. And so I've been through enough to be able to understand that was the fog of war. Yeah. And I've had to deal with other guys that felt that same way as we're loading them up. And it's like, dude, no.
Yeah, that's good.
We'll talk. We'll talk when I get back.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah. All right. So you're in the medevac helo. Was it pretty fuzzy after that, or how much do you remember going all the way back to when you're stateside and recovering? So
I remember, and I'll protect myself with this. I'm not a pilot, but I'm fairly certain we were flying map of the earth, because I remember things were like, we were pretty close to the ground. Yeah. It was weird, but we get to Tarankout and a bunch of my buddies are all there, and they were expecting my body. And I was like, no,
So you stayed conscious the whole time?
I tried so hard not to be. It hurt.
How does one try to fucking go unconscious?
It hurt so bad. I just wanted to go to sleep, but one of the guys on my team wouldn't let me. And then in the helicopter, the flight medic kept, you know, just touching me all the time. Dude, quit touching me, man. Just want to go to sleep, bro. But yeah, we get to TK, and they're told that they're going to be, you know, picking up my body. And when I'm alive, some of those guys were pissed.
Really?
Oh, they were just like, because their emotions were already taxed, because they were picking up their buddy that we went through the Q course with. Yeah. We did all this training together, everything like that. And now I'm alive, and it's just like, and it just went from there. And it's like, I'm messed up. And so as they're bringing me to, you know, the roll facility, I had, you know, they're starting to cut my clothes off. And I had this lucky Oregon Ducks t-shirt on, because I'm a diehard Ducks fan. And I had my Lucky Oregon Ducks t-shirt on, and I'm just trying to fight this nurse because she's trying to cut it off. I was like, I will take it off. She's like, I got to do this. This is my job. And I was just like, what is going on here? This is my Lucky shirt. She's like, sir, stop. Look at your leg. All right, let me cut your shirt off. It's not that lucky. Yeah. I was like, man, that's horrible. So they cut all my clothes off or anything like that. And then, goes lights out as I go through the initial surgeries and life-saving. And that's where I was told by one of the surgeons that was there that I'd expired twice. And I was like, expired? Like, he looked at the date and was like, oh, this milk's bad. Like, what do you mean? And he's like, dude, you died twice on the table. I was like, oh. And so I was a little worse off than I thought I was, because in my mind, if I can recollect everything that's going on, then it must not be that bad. Yeah. Like, obviously, I'm not having a coherent conversation with the guys, but, it's like, hey, I'm alive, I'm good, stuff like that. But you can't be that bad if you can do all that. So in my mind, when he said that, just like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no way it was that bad. But when I woke up, they gave me a note that our senior 18 Delta had basically put with me. And it said, if you're reading this, you're alive. I was like, if I'm reading this, I'm alive. It was that bad. And then it was only years later, like last year, Kyle and I were really talking in depth about that day. And he said the entire team knew that they were never going to see me again.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird to hear that. And I just, because I know I had some decent blood loss, but the fact that, I was coherent for so long, my mind just couldn't equate to that it was that bad.
So what all were the injuries that came out of that? So
right leg, I was classified battlefield amputee, but I'll get into that here in a second. Shattered left knee, shattered right knee, burns up both legs, and then unfortunately had stepped on the IED with my legs open. So, in the stepping motion. And so I had significant trauma to, I guess, testicles and that area. And now I can't have kids, but we have dogs. So It's amazing.
What, I guess you mentioned you would talk about the battlefield amputee thing. What is that? How does that shake out?
So my casualty collection card says below the knee right leg amputation, and so as I get from Turncout to calf to bath to long stool, and I remained in Afghanistan for well over a week to stabilize me, which is a pretty long time for a casualty not to go to long stool.
Yeah.
And then from long stool to Brooks Army Medical Center. And I wanted to go to Brooks Army Medical Center because my dad lived in New Mexico. And a couple of my buddies, one, Will Lyles, who lost both of his legs a couple weeks before me, he was at Brooks Army Medical Center. So I wanted to be with somebody in my company that I knew, so I wasn't alone. And as I'm starting this, I'm going through, it's 28 surgeries later. But at this point in time, it wasn't 28 surgeries, but I get to Brooks Army Medical Center and start to go through all the preparation. They're doing debridement surgeries and all this other stuff. So a couple weeks later, they come into my room and they said, hey, we're, long story kind of short on this, said, hey, there's this new, I guess, program we're testing out. It's called limb salvage. And so we're really good at hacking limbs off, but we want to start testing salvage, medical limb salvage. And they said, so the IED that I stepped on, if you were going to step on one, mine was a pretty good one to step on because the RE factor of the explosives was was pretty high. So it was like C4. So it shot up through my foot and exited out at my calf. But my doctor was telling me some of the big reasons why they have to do amputations is tissue damage. And I sustained not a lot of tissue damage. There was a lot of damage done, but he said, I can fix any bone, but it's the tissue and infections. And you have not had an infection yet. And which was crazy because there was human feces also. So I had E. coli and a bunch of other stuff. But we were also bathing in the Helmer River. So kind of goes hand in hand. But so, you know, they were like, you're a good candidate for this limb salvage program that we're just starting up. And your leg it's going to be one of the, it'll be the worst ones we've salvaged if we can. Chances of it working are pretty low. It's, I want to say 15% was thrown out there, 10-15% chance. But if it works, it's going to help us in so many ways. That's going to help so many other people. And they said, look, you still have, my limb, it was held on by metal rods and a bird cage with rods going into upper and lower and everything, X-Fix. And they said, if this doesn't work, it's easy. It's below the knee amputation, couple months to recover from that. You get a prosthetic, you're on your way. They were like, but if it does, it's going to help so many people. And they said, once it's off, it's off. But you still have a choice. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And then that got into the 28 surgeries, and basically I was able to salvage my limb from that explosion. And again, we had talked. I don't know if we brushed over it, but we had talked earlier about a lot of the mental health struggles I went through in the hospital, and the advice that I got from my dad, and overcoming my own victimization and entitlement to, okay, let me make myself stronger so I can get back. What does every soldier, sailor, airman, Marine say when they've been, injured in combat? I want to go back, right? So for me, I wanted to get back, but the biggest driving force behind that was I remember listening to them laugh at me and celebrate me on the ICOM that they had killed me.
Yeah.
And I was like, you guys bloodied me up, but I'm going to come back. You didn't beat me. And it was a tough road. It was a tough road to get back. And I'm not just talking to surgeries. I was medically retired. I came back on active duty through a waiver called a COAD, or a continue on active duty waiver. I was non-deployable, everything like that. But I just kept my battalion sergeant major had told me something when he was in my hospital room. And I told him the same thing. I'm telling you, I want to go back. I want to get back into the fight and this and this and this. And he said, Ryan, I'll make one promise to you. If you get cleared, he said, I'll send you back to war. He said, the war's not going anywhere. He said, if you get cleared, I'll send you back to war. And I threw everything I had behind that. Some people were trying to talk to me about management expectation and unrealistic, expectations. Like, look, dude, you're lucky to you're going to walk. You're going to need assistance to walk for the rest of your life. You're lucky to even be alive. Like, you need to stop, calm down, let the young guys do it. You need to mentally recover, physically recover, and then, figure out what you want to do post-military, but you're done in the military. And I just didn't want to believe it. Now, could I have been setting myself up for a major failure? I could have been, because maybe my management expectation wasn't correct at all. But my sergeant major telling me that he'll send me back to war if I get medically cleared, I said, okay, absolutely. And I hit rehab hard. So much pain. I just hit it as hard as I could until, again, I was brought back on active duty through a COAD system, or COAD waiver. And then finally, November 2011, I was cleared to go back to 7th Group, but I'm non-deployable. And so 7th Group, and I'm pretty sure the SEALs have the same thing, it's called the THOR 3 program. So return to war, or, let's say guy gets hurt in a jump or motorcycle accident or something like that. This is the group's internal way of making sure that he can go back to that ODA team and he's healthy, he's recovered, he's strong, and he's going to be a benefit, not a liability to that team. So it's called the THOR 3 program. It's one of the best. It's one of the best programs I've ever been a part of. So basically, if you get cleared through the THOR 3, then you're cleared to deploy. THOR 3 said, yeah, this guy is deployable. So I did the 3 months with THOR 3 program, and it was brutal. Paul and Dana, they just wrecked me. But finally, I get the you're good to go back to a team, and the group surgeon, signs off on this waiver, like, yeah, I'm good to deploy. Well, my company, they knew what had happened to me. And they're like, yeah, you're going to be rear detachment. We'll probably have you working in the air cell, coordinating jumps and stuff like that, but you're done deploying. Like, leave this to the healthy guys, stuff like that. Well, they had already left for Afghanistan again, along with our battalion sergeant major, who told me, if you get healthy, I'll send you back to war. So group surgeon signs off on my waiver to deploy, and I'm out the door, I think it was like February 2012, heading back to Afghanistan.
Wow.
After September 2010, almost losing my life to an IED. February, I'm heading back, and I'm just like, it's that I thought I did it. I thought I was like, I'm on top of the world. I just, I defied all the odds, blah, 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 fill in all the blanks. And I was like, yeah, it's probably going to be like a ticker tape parade, like everyone lined up, and I'm going to drive down the airfield in Bagram, and everyone confetti everywhere, and, like booze and, like
Hookers and fire trucks.
I was like, this is going to be great. This has got to be what's going on. Look at everything I just did.
Yeah.
And I show up, and the very first introduction I get after I get all my bags and everything, and I show up to the company headquarters area, and I just hear this, what the fuck are you doing here? And I was like,
thanks, buddy.
Where's
bend over, I'll show you.
Where's the confetti? Like, and so the company sergeant major was very upset.
Really?
That I was back in Afghanistan.
Why?
Because I think, number one, he thought
you were a liability? Or?
Yeah. And that I should be rear detachment and stuff like that.
So on that, I guess, to get medically cleared, what does that process look like? Is there, I know there's the kind of physical evaluation, but do you have to pass like PFT, PRT? Like, do you have to be able to run a certain, like, do they put you through any of that to clear it?
Yeah. So it was the test that the THOR 3 had.
Which is what?
And so it was like the new, I don't know exactly every event that the new Army PT test has, but it's something similar to that, where it's sprints, it's carrying heavy weight, it's dragging heavy weight, it's pulling yourself up over stuff. It wasn't like a 2-mile run and stuff like that. It was a very functional, carrying heavy weight and doing functional shit with it, kitted out and everything like that.
At that point, physically, could you have done a 3-mile timed run? Could you have rucked fucking 10 miles?
Yes.
So it was the running.
I couldn't.
You could sprint though?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just short bursts, like 100 meter or 100 yards.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But a 2-mile run, after the blast, it was just gating out, getting that gate. Like, I can do a 2-mile run, but we're talking 20-minute 2-mile.
Okay. Even now?
Now, probably 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2-mile, 23-minute 2-mile.
Okay.
That's just what but rucking, probably about the same time.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but it's a functional test.
But so I guess internally you felt that you physically had what it took to continue to do the job in a combat environment.
I did, but I had questions because I had a lot of unknowns. I was full of confidence, but I had confidence and doubts that I wouldn't let anybody see.
Confidence, kind of like in high school where you thought you were going to be a Seattle Seahawk.
Yeah, or like I'm a great wrestler and I get pinned in the first round, stuff like that. So, I had confidence but doubts, and so the company sergeant major, he's like, all right, you're going to work here at the TOC, and I'll battle track for the entire 10-month deployment. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's great. However I can support the guys downrange, great. And it's like, all right, you're a Charlie, so you're going to run supplies and, out to birds, not out to the fobs, but out to the birds, and the birds will take it out and stuff like that. I was like, cool, whatever I can do to help. I'm just happy to be back. Well, Command Sergeant Major, Battalion Command Sergeant Major came back out and met up with him. He's like, hey, it's glad to see you. You ready? You good? I was like, yeah, I'm ready, Sergeant Major. Like, happy to be back. And he's like, okay, great. Have you unpacked any of your stuff yet? It's like, no, I literally just got done talking to the company Sergeant Major. He's like, all right, you're getting on those birds over there, and you're going out to one of the worst places in Afghanistan right now.
No shit.
And I was like, and he said, hey, you're here. You're an 18 Charlie, and they need an 18 Charlie out there. And he said, you're going to Panjwai District, Kandahar Province, 2012, before the massacre, the Bales massacre that he did. And I was just like, okay. And I got on the ground, and the team was doing the same thing. They're like, what are you doing here? Like, dude, like we're climbing grape rows. We're jumping mud hut walls. We're packing, tons of weight. They're like, you're a liability. And so I spent that entire deployment that I was with the team to basically change all those minds, which I did. At the very end, when I left the team before the deployment was over, but I was going to, I think they called it AST. Everybody had to do a role with AST where it's, you basically do what the company sergeant major told me I was going to do. You're going to get supplies ready for the team, pack birds. And, I was, extended reach forklift 10K qualified, so I could load C-130s and stuff like that, which that's actually a qualification you have to have, and it was in short demand. So I was like, okay, but that entire trip in the Panjwai, 6 months in the Panjwai was just that constant assessment part. Yeah. You're always being assessed. Show any weakness, and I would wake up some days and I couldn't even walk. My leg hurt so bad. And I would just, you'd have to look around, make sure no one's looking, then kind of drag yourself over here. But you got to put on that show so nobody ever doubts your ability. And it proved it. I mean, we had, unfortunately that trip there was a lot of ramp side ceremonies that trip in 2012. And a lot of it came from the massacre that happened when all those Afghan civilians were killed.
Did you lose some of your guys?
Not on the ODA, but the infantry that was with us, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were there any instances physically where you did kind of trip up and weren't able to either keep up or perform as needed, or did you manage to pull it all off?
Crazy enough, I managed to pull it all off. But you said, was there any instances where I tripped up? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So the device that I would wear on my right leg, that I still wear when I need it on my right leg, it basically gives me plantar, dorsi, a calf, and everything like that. And so, but it keeps me fused at the 90. And let me tell you what, I've caught this toe on everything and would go face first. And it's like, wow, glad my face broke the fall here. This is great. Yeah. So yes, tripped up. Yeah, clumsiest Green Beret in an IED infested area. Yeah, it was great. It was amazing.
Are you wearing it now?
No. Unless I'm going to be working out or packing weight, or be doing long movements, I'll wear it. Yeah. But here, a lot of sitting and going through airport security. I'm tired of explaining it.
Yeah. In terms of the amount of damage that your leg took, I mean, can we see it?
Yeah.
I mean, can you show it now?
Oh, right here? Yeah.
I'm just curious to see what, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I got even better pictures of before the skin grafts were put on.
Oh, yeah. Get Zach to zoom in here.
Yeah.
Wow. And I guess it seems like it's in really good shape considering.
Yeah, I work out. No, just
I'm kind of a fucking badass.
Yeah. No, this whole side here, I'll show you the before pictures of it.
Yeah.
But you'll see all the way down to my fib.
Wow.
And then my tib was sticking out here, and my boot was just over to the right.
Wow.
Yeah. So this was all flopped over there, and then the bottom of my foot is all skin graft from thighs.
Okay.
And yeah. So
you broke both of your kneecaps. Is that right?
Yeah, the black fragment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this one they had put it back together right through there, and then I had burns all up this calf.
No significant structural damage to the left.
No.
Really?
Mm-mm. Oh. And now the testicles. So.
Yeah. Why don't you teabag the fucking coffee table there for us? Is it still super painful? I know you talked about arthritis. Is it mostly in there, or do you have it everywhere? Or?
Yeah. So the pain is pretty significant.
Still.
Some days there's days when I do wish that I just had a below the knee amputation just because. Yeah. But the problem is it's changed my gait, which means my hips, which means lower back, middle back, upper back, neck, shoulders, everything.
Yeah.
It's insane because like the way God, I guess you could say designed us is like everything supports everything. And it's all fluid. You disrupt something, it's chain reaction. You're gonna have it. Yeah. And so, as I get older, it's just, it's it's fun being 46 though, because you wake up, you get out of bed, and at that age, I'm allowed to make all the noises and the grunts and the the hawking stuff up and stuff like that. Yeah, so I'm allowed to.
Yeah, I hear you. I do have a couple of Patreon questions as it relates to specifically the injury and kind of the aftermath. Kevin asked, did you ever have any issues with addiction or overuse of narcotics, painkillers? And if so, what was the turning point that got you out of that hole?
So believe it or not, no addictions with narcotics. I'll never forget, I had a box of fentanyl lollipops next to my bed. And there was times that I would wheel in for rehab with like 2 sticking out of my mouth. I never really
had an issue with it.
It just didn't do anything that was so overwhelmingly like, wow, this is it. The biggest addiction that I had, and this is going to sound really weird, but it's the truth, was self-pity. My addiction was feeling sorry for myself. And that's a real thing.
Yeah.
I definitely believed that I was so much more worth, whatever it was that I expected, that I was addicted to feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah.
So it wasn't substance or drinking or anything like that. It was just flat out just being a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some pretty heavy self-discovery. Claire asks, what's the biggest life lesson you can impart on how you maintained your mental fortitude to rally through your injuries?
Ooh, so that goes into some deep stuff. Is Claire, you said?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I went through a period of time where there was an option, and I knew that if I got to this point in my life, I was going to kill myself. Just knowing that I had that option is very dangerous.
Yeah.
It's extremely dangerous. It means I accepted that if things get any worse, if I get any lower into my own self-dug grave, my own self-induced, pity, then I'm just going to do this. And I already had it in my head, but whether or not things got worse or not, I don't know, but there was one instance, and this was well after the fact. This is before I, started to build my relationship back with God, that we'll wait on that one. Let me see if I want to talk about it or not. Right. But as far as, how I stayed, so my dad is, he's a guardian angel. I believe it because I believe if it wasn't for my dad going through what he went through and then helping me through my times, I probably would have self-selected. But what has helped me mentally is only recently. And, because when I say that, yes, 2010 was 14 years ago. But when you think about being back on active duty and you're living deployment to deployment, okay, make it through this 8 months and I'm back in it again. Okay, make it through this 12 months and I'm back in it again. And you're living for those next deployments. You don't have to face any of the demons because you're constantly living for that next adrenaline spike. And so it wasn't until I got out, and then after the withdrawal from Afghanistan, because I left Afghanistan about a month before the full withdrawal.
Wow.
And after, I had that downtime to not only reflect, but to think about, well, now what? My entire career has been spent, in this theater with this objective. We've put friends on helicopters for their last flights. I was almost one of them. Like, now what? What was it even for? And so I started to go down again, that self-induced, entitled, victimized hole that I was digging at a rapid fucking pace, man. Let me tell you what, if it took me years to dig my grave before, I was digging it in days. And it wasn't until I was able to step back and realize I have no purpose and I have no sense of service. I used to work at this level, whatever it is, but I used to work at this level. And now, go to Applebee's for a thank you for your service on Veterans Day? Like, now what? You have no idea what I've been through, what I've gone through, what I've done for this country, blah, 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 blah. Fill in all of those statements, and they're valid. Veterans have a real bitch right now. But the problem is they can also create an entitled victim, which is what I was. And I had to realize that you can't force anybody to understand what you've been through because, number one, they weren't there. But even if they were there, they're not you. Everybody processes stuff differently. They're not going to know what you've been through. Why do I keep forcing people to understand me when it's absolutely impossible to do that? And I went back to it, the withdrawal from Afghanistan. I was pissed. I'm still pissed. But I just kept digging this grave for myself rapidly until I had to stop. And there was one instant that I did. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but I wrote a note and I was trying to figure out how I was going to kill myself without leaving a mess for my wife. So, pills and a bottle of booze, and it didn't work. And I've heard it all. Well, if you really wanted to, then you would have X, Y, and Z. But one of my biggest concerns was, what is my wife going to have to clean up? And that saved my life because, I had plenty of other options. And I had the note written out and everything.
When was this?
gosh, this was 2019.
19.
Yep.
So it's while you were still in.
Yep, getting ready to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I guess that mindset as you're kind of wrapping up your career and now you find yourself with a feeling of lacking purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Was that attempted suicide the wake-up call for you to kind of lift yourself out of that?
So I don't necessarily like to say attempted suicide because I had so many other things I could have done. Okay. You know, and I do believe when people are like, if you really wanted to do it, you would have done it. So maybe it was a cry for help, a very poorly, painful, puking, horribly cry for help. But it could have been, because I do believe, you know, it's like if I really wanted to, I would have just done it.
Yeah.
Why all of that? You know, the Percocet and the alcohol and stuff like that, like why? And so, yeah, I do believe 100% it was a cry for help, but I think it was also let me get back. And again, I don't know this for sure. You know, I don't actually talk about that. This may be the first podcast I've talked about this on. But sometimes when I think about why I made that decision, you know, to do that, and knowing full well that, you know, there's so many other ways I could have done it that it would have been done quick, easy, if you really want to. Why? I think I wanted to go back to September 12th, 2010, when I had the clarity of how big of a loser I was and how, like, I got that reset button. Maybe. I don't know, because when I think back, obviously alcohol was a major contributor to it. But when I think back about why, you know, what caused that, I believe in another way, and again, you know, people can destroy me on the comments for this, but it could have been God talking to me as well. It's like, you're still not listening to me. I put an IED in your path to wake you up, and you're not listening. Now I'm going to do this to you. Because I started to pursue my relationship with God after that, because I had no answers. I was miserable, but what hurt me the most was I was hurting my wife. That's what bothered me the most about it. And so, yeah, I don't know why I made the choice that I did that day. I know alcohol played a major role in it.
Had you been drinking a lot leading up to that?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you stop drinking then?
No, haven't stopped drinking. I've just controlled it a lot because I've never been addicted. I don't have like a substance or an alcohol addiction. But you know, I mean, my waistline says I could probably hold off on some beers during, you know, college football Saturdays, but it just wasn't. It never really hit me like, oh, I need to get control over my drinking. Yeah. But that night, I don't know why I chose what I chose, and I don't know why, you know, I wrote the note and everything. Yeah.
You still have the note?
I do.
Yeah. Is that something you look at occasionally?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Is there a reason why you keep it?
I think to remind myself of what never to go back to.
Yeah.
Like, don't ever let yourself go there again. You know, yeah, got it. You would have ended your life. You know, people would have shed a tear or two and then moved on after they divided your stuff up in storage and gone from there. But think about how many people would have been hurt because of that decision that I was going to make.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to go into my beliefs on suicide, but Ryan Hendrickson personally, just talking about me, nobody else. Ryan Hendrickson personally, that would have been the most selfish thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if I almost did or not, but a cry for help was made.
Yeah. That's some heavy stuff, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, bro.
No, that's what this is all about and what it's for, There's been a couple of things that, you've mentioned that you don't want to get into or don't want to talk about. Can you, I guess I'm not asking you to explain yourself, but explain why you don't want to talk about some certain things, like whether it's your mom or.
Yeah. So the first thing I said I'll decide if I want to talk about it or not was, what we'll call it the cry for help. And so, maybe somebody listening to that will hear, I've been there too, man. Nobody needs to suffer alone. But yeah, childhood was pretty rough.
I guess the question is not out of being overly nosy. It's that, from a kind of a therapeutic standpoint, if there are things that are so tough and uncomfortable at this point that you don't want to talk about them, is it because it's too painful? Is it because from a personal standpoint, you just don't want people to know about it?
No, it's not really painful, and it's not that I don't want people to know about it. It's actually embarrassing. But so the situation, my dad had, he'd been married, 5 times, I guess. And one of the, exes, when my dad was gone on logging trips, for multiple times, her and this girl that would move in with her, or this woman, full grown woman, I'm a kid, that would move in when my dad was gone, they'd sexually molest me as a little boy. And so I was really, at first my defense mechanism was like, I'm a man, oh well, shit happens. But then as I realized the amount of destruction I was causing other women in my life, because I felt all women need to be punished. And so, divorce and just being just a piece of shit, just a horrible, horrible human being. And so the reason why I started talking about it was because of this very disturbing statistic that I've heard about. And again, I could be wrong. I don't think I am, though. But I think they say 1 in 3 little girls and 1 in 5 little boys in the United States.
Yeah. I know it's super high.
And I just, again, being a Green Beret, that's, it's a decent accomplishment. It is just a job, but it's a decent accomplishment, but it's also a platform. And if there's this little boy out there that is like he's dealing with this alone, or he feels that he's the only one. Again, I'm not saying Green Berets are all that, but here's this Green Beret that also had that happen to him. So maybe that could, help somebody. I don't know, because I think it can. Yeah. I think if this child, or I've had people come up to me. I've talked about it, I think, twice now, and I had this guy. He messaged me, and this guy is like the epitome of NFL, just badass, like badassery on all levels. And I'm not going to name names because that's not fair to him. But he was like, that happened to me too. What? How? you're like, you're the most athletic, fill in all the blanks. You're in NFL. You're this. That's when it hit me that maybe my message could help somebody. And if it does, then who am I? Like, I'm going to let my pride get in the way of helping somebody else. I don't think that's not what God intended for me. And so it goes back to my dad's advice. Regardless of how bad the situation was that happened to you, use this experience to make yourself stronger to help other people. And if you do that, then you will recover and you will be rewarded far past anything you could ever imagine, because you're using some bad stuff to try and help other people. Yeah. And I guess maybe I look at it that way. I don't know. I'm still, it's only been, last couple of years that I've opened up about it. Even my dad, I told him once, and I couldn't tell him again, because like you could feel that he felt that he let his son down. Yeah, that was tough.
Yeah. Is that something that you still struggle with or think about?
So I don't struggle with it because I'm willing to talk about it. But it used to be I would talk about it if somebody would ask, but there's not many conversations that start like that. Yeah. That's not a conversation starter. So being open with it, especially, on platforms, like this, that maybe there is a parent that's listening to it that's like, this happened to my, son, daughter, whatever it is. Like I'm I don't know, but I think talking about it, as new as it is for me, it's kind of therapeutic. Yeah. I mean,
have you talked professionally to anybody about it?
No.
No. Have you thought about doing it?
No.
Why not?
I just don't want to. I guess it's kind of one of those other, things that I kind of battle with a little bit, where it's like, this happens to so many little boys and girls. Like, I will find people that they can talk to, but I think I'm so far beyond it, and I've dealt with my demons. I let it ruin me in so many relationships until I just finally, had to get control over being just this little boy stuck in the past. And I'm not, you never get over it, because I don't think it's, well, that's a really dumb statement. It's not natural. It's not something that's supposed to happen. I don't think it's not. I know it's not. But I believe that I've come to terms with it. And I just believe I've come to terms with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not that you're asking for my opinion, but I think it would be beneficial to talk about it, because you don't want to.
Yeah.
But again, I appreciate you sharing it. My goal wasn't to get you to open up so much as it was just to understand why you didn't want to talk about it. But
yeah.
But I do appreciate you walking us through that. That's pretty heavy.
If it can help somebody.
Yeah.
Help anybody listening.
Yeah. No, for sure. If we could take a couple steps back, you did multiple deployments after that.
Yes.
Did it ever get any easier physically, or was it just always a total kick in the nuts where you're kind of dragging yourself around? And did any of them, were there any super significant operations that you were a part of during any of them?
Yeah, I mean, the deployments didn't get easier from 2012, 16, 17, and 18.
So physically, it was always the same kick in the nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I would say 18 to 19 trip, we were mounted most of the time, so it wasn't as physically demanding.
Yeah.
Or we were with the Kandahar, so we'd fly in. It wasn't these long 20K movements and stuff like that.
What were you guys driving?
MRAPs, and then before that was like RG31s, 32s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but that's when we were doing some stuff out in Faryab, fighting the they say they were Taliban, I say they're Iranians, but yeah, I guess 2016 was that was a mission that changed my life. And it really, gosh, man, it was, I learned so much about myself during that 2016 mission. So our mission was, we were going into Baghlan province, and the Afghan forces, every time they'd gone into this area for the last couple of years, they've just gotten the shit kicked out of them. Taliban was well dug in, defensive fighting positions, trenches, tunnels, everything. And so basically there was a network that was working out of this area, because for a long time the U.S. was just like, okay, well, they don't fuck with us, we won't fuck with them. Well, now there was a network there that was actually staging guys for suicide attacks in Kabul. So it's like, hey, we're gonna send an ODA and a ODB up there, link up with NDS and commando element. We're gonna go and clear these villages. Okay. So I was with a different company at the time. They had needed an 18 Charlie, so I had volunteered to go. And so, doing all the workups and everything like that, we fly into, I want to say it was Polycumri, and we make the foot movement to the NDS base. It was this old Dutch base. So we make the move to this NDS base, and we start planning our mission, the clearance of the villages down there. And so we get ready, the couple, I think it's like 2 weeks, and now it's kickoff. And what we were doing is we were going to be driving in mounted till we got to the dismount port, and then the rest of it would be dismounted or on foot. And we were going to be using the Afghan commando Humvees. So not to tip our hat that Americans were in the area. Sounds good. And so then, once we take contact, we're going to drop every single bit of arsenal we have in the Air Force inventory, and we'll be good to go. And the Taliban will never know that it was Americans or anything like that. So we are at kickoff. We go mounted, and then we get to the dismounted part. And one of the scariest places that I had between myself and the first compound we were to clear was an orchard. And everybody who has served knows orchards in Afghanistan and probably Iraq as well. Really bad news. Yeah. Between booby traps, caches, fighting positions, everything else. Orchards are scary, especially at 1 o'clock in the morning. So we had dismounted up to, a certain point right before the orchard. And it's myself in the front with, I have 4 National Mine Reduction Group Afghans in MRG. And it's, okay, now we're going to start the movement into the orchard. We already knew that it was going to be slow moving through the orchard just because of the threats. And we start making our way through the orchard. And I remember we're probably 50 feet into the orchard, and all of a sudden we hear this loud pop. And so everybody hits the deck, and I'm thinking, sniper? It's like, but it was 1 round. It's like, what is going on? Well, the guy right in front of me, Jaweed, he's trying to untangle himself out of some string or line. And then another one of our Afghans, Abe, who was a dear friend of mine, he goes to the wall, and there's a grape shot charge in the wall. And So basically, before we went into the orchard, the overwatch position with mortars, 50 cals, 240s, everything like that, just shot the shit out of the entire orchard. Just absolutely death blossomed it. And then we started our movement in. Well, a piece of probably Carl Gustav round had impacted and rendered that grape shot charge, or let's just say for the listeners that don't know grape shot, a claymore in the wall, a homemade claymore. It made it inoperable. So at low order, the blasting cap went off, but the bulk explosives did not. So it's like, wow, okay, that's the initial part. All right, let me get up, clean myself off a little bit. All right, let's keep moving. So still clearing through the orchard. Assaulters are 25 meters behind us because if we get hit, you don't want the collateral damage on top of all that. So, and we're being watched by Overwatch. The problem is Overwatch is up high and the orchard has a lot of leafy trees, right? And so they can't really see all of our movements, but I have my IR strobe on because I'm the flat, I'm the front or the tip of the spear. I had to do it. Sorry. Anyways, so I'm in the very front and with my Afghan counterparts, and they just see like my strobe is flashing off all the vegetation and everything like that. Well, we get to a corner to where now I can see the first compound, and we're still under nods, but I think it's probably 3:00 in the morning at this time. And I can see the first compound, and all of a sudden I see these two figures in the compound, like lookouts. All of a sudden they start sprinting back towards the compound. It's like, oh no. And within seconds, this burst of fire. So the compound's 22 meters from us. This burst of fire comes out of a PKM belt fed. And it was like I could reach out through your nods and you can grab the flame. And all of a sudden the entire wall of this compound, all of a sudden muzzle flashes everywhere. And then that zip crack. And then you'd hear a guy scream, Allah Akbar, and an RPG would fly over and boom. So they hadn't, because my IR strobe was kind of throwing them off of where we were at, because it was kind of bouncing off of everything. But the fact is they could see my IR strobe, which means they had nods. And so, as this firefight's ensuing, every time the guy with an RPG would jump out, the PKM gunner would stop. And I remember I was trying to look through, I had my IR, my IR laser. And I remember the guy jumped out again. And this was probably the third RPG. I was like, oh shit, he's jumping out right about here, and rounds are coming and everything. So, but I'm kind of laying on my side, and my weapon's at like the side, I'm laying on my side, and I would kind of come over so I can get some shots off, and then add a muzzle flash, and then back to the side again, or back prone again. So, I was as low as I could get. Well, the fourth time he came out exactly when I was on my side. And I hit my laser toggle, and his midsection was lined up exactly with my laser. Like I didn't move my weapon system, nothing. He jumped dead center of it. So I just, probably 20 rounds, cause I was scared and, but I let it burst, and so he dropped, but the ambush is still ensuing, and we're pinned down in the orchard. And so there's talk on the radio, hey, we need direct air support. We can't, Ryan's 22 meters from the compound. It's like, okay, now the Taliban are on ICOM saying, hey, we're going to flank the guys in the orchard and kill and capture, because we have the assaulters, and they're not using that terminology, but we have the assaulters cut off. And now we have the guys in the orchard. They're ours. Let's get them. There's an American there. He has an IR strobe. JTAC gets over the radio. He's like, get your fucking strobe off your helmet, Ryan. and, you know, it's chaos. So I remember I took it and I threw it as close to the compound as I could. So then I could say, hey, yeah, you see where my strobe is at? Well, 10 feet, you know, northeast, whatever it was, west of that is where the PKM is at. You know, I don't know why I did that. I just, I did, thinking it was a good idea. And it got to a point to where the fire that was coming in, the intensity was bad, and the overwatch position could no longer effectively engage because they didn't know where we were at. And so for fratricide. And I just remember we got the approval to drop, and the JTAC comes over the radio and he said, Brian, you know, and this is, I'm speaking calmly, but imagine, you know, a pretty chaotic situation with rounds going off and explosions and stuff. And he's like, Ryan, we got an aircraft inbound, stay low. And then he got back on the radio and he's like, hey, we're approved, Ryan. We're going to drop. He's like, good luck. Good luck. He's like, this isn't the blackjack table, bro. Like, good luck. Like, there's nothing like no, you know, gladiator kind of speech or anything, just good luck. And he came back over the radio and he's like, Ryan, weapons release. And I heard the aircraft, you know, arch up, you know, as they're dropping. They do that. Again, I'm not a fighter pilot, but I've seen it on TV. So basically I am one. But he dropped. And I just remember when that bomb hit, it was this concussive force, because the flash was before anything else. You know, I saw the flash and I'm just laying there and my face is buried in the trail. You know, I'm just trying to stay as low as I can. And I remember looking up and I can see debris flying over me. And then all of a sudden my biggest concern came from, I don't want to get crushed by big chunks of mud hut wall landing on me.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to get my back broke because stuff was landing all around me. But it was this weird, the second time I saw God in Afghanistan, it was this weird halo or this bubble that was put over myself and my teammates, my Afghan counterparts. And stuff landed all around us. And yeah, I had some sticks on me and stuff like that. But there was this chunk of like 50-pound chunk of mud hut wall that landed a couple feet from me. And, you know, people would be like, no, that's not God, that's luck. Well, you call it luck, I call it God. That's just my definition of, you know, my belief. But so the bomb, you know, so strike happens and it's like, all right, withdraw back to where the assaulters are. So we're trying to stand up. I'm falling over everywhere. It's just, you know, this is like, wow, I just got freaking rocked. And, you know, I've been knocked out before. So, you know, it's just like, man, I mouthed off to the wrong guy. And so, you know, finally make it back to where the assaulters are at. And then they call in for a second airstrike. And I remember, you know, JTAC, you know, everyone come up there like, you're alive, you know, because right after the bomb went off, they were on the radio, but I couldn't hear anybody. It's just ringing and ringing and ringing. And, but I'm also the cool guy that wore the Britney Spears mic instead of Peltor's. Cause I was like, yeah, I'm old school. Yeah. You know, dumb.
Yeah.
Super stupid. You know, I was like, man, I look so cool. Ears didn't think so. Cause I had ruptured cause I had this liquid coming out of my ears.
Wow. And
it was in my beard. And I was just like, oh man. And, you know, they were on the radio and it was Ryan, you know, Ryan. And I finally get on the radio. I was like, yeah, I'm here. And there's Ryan, fucking get your ass back here now. We're dropping, you know. So we make it back and I was like, dude, I didn't know a 250-pound bomb could rock you like that. The JTAC said 250 pounds. No, bro, those were 500-pounders.
Wow.
You just ate a 500-pound bomb 22 meters from your position.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of the mission. And so, you know, we get into the compound, you know, got the dead Taliban in there, stuff like that, and, you know, start working working our way through it. Now we have this entire, it's 5 a.m. now. Mission's just started. We have an entire village to clear still. And I'm rocked. I'm just like, what the fuck just happened? And, I was like, yeah, we'll just hit pause on the video game real quick so I can go compose myself. And
what was the fluid coming out of your ear? Was it blood or was it something different?
Yeah, it was clear. I don't know. Probably, tell you the truth, probably fecal matter. Knowing me,
Out of your ear?
Shit. Oh, because I'm full of shit.
Oh, I gotcha.
But
to me, that would be alarming that it's like cranial fluid or something.
Yeah, they'd asked me if I was good, but I didn't want to leave my guys.
Yeah.
I didn't want to leave the teams. I'm good. Yeah. I'm good, man. Keep pushing on. We're pressing.
Yeah.
And so we begin the initial clearance of the village, or we'll call it an assault on the village. And myself alone, I had bipped or blown in place 17 IEDs just in one part of the village. My Afghan partners, 50 plus.
What were you guys using to blow them? Just
quarter block C4
okay.
and time fuse.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this entire place was rigged. IEDs everywhere. There was a point in time where we came across 2 107 rockets that were they were going to be command initiated, that were to fly to this bridge point, and they were just propped up on rocks.
Wow.
It was insane. Like, this was Rob Zombie's House of Horrors. Yeah. But there was nobody in the village. It was deserted. The problem is we could tell people were just there. And so as we're finishing up, it's 2:00 in the afternoon right now, and we get to LOA. It's like, all right, the village has been cleared. Now we're going to start to conduct our tactical withdrawal. It's missions accomplished. We're going to leave behind, some Afghans to maintain the village, make sure the Taliban just don't move right back in, and we're going to get back to base. Close call this morning. Woo, made it. High fives all the way around. Well, the enemy also has a say-so. And that old saying, they only need to be lucky once. We got to be lucky every time. Mm-hmm. So as we are finishing up, we're getting back, and starting to make our withdrawal. And we're, there's an argument with the Afghans over staying behind. They're like, we're not staying here. This place is dangerous. This is a shithole. We're not staying here. It's like, we're going to lose all this ground tonight. And they're like, so, okay. As we started our withdrawal back, the commando sergeant major came up. I was standing next to to my buddy Abe, Afghan, but he also spoke English, but he was National Mine Reduction Group guy. And this sergeant major came up and he said, "Hey, there's a bunch of men heading this way right now." It's like, "What do you mean men? Are they villagers?" He said, "I don't know, but there are people that are heading this way right now." It's like, oh shit. So, okay, so it's, so now it's like, hey, Sergeant, hey, we got this going on. These guys are heading this way. Okay, well, yeah, we'll be ready for a fight, but we're going to conduct our withdrawal. It's like, okay. Maybe 30 seconds later, we're formed up on this dirt road, not formed up like military formed up, but we're getting ready, order of movement. We're getting ready to move back. And all of a sudden, the entire tree line just erupts in fire. And then all of a sudden, to our left side, that whole compounded area and tree line erupts in fire. And rounds are just coming in like I've never seen a sustained amount of fire like that before. Someone asked me, well, what's the best you can describe it? And I said, a whole bunch of horses running down a dusty road. Dust was getting, dust crickets from all the rounds that were coming in. And so, everybody scatters into the ditches on either side of the road. And myself and my buddy, best friend, Frankie Hernandez, he's right next to me. Him and I are in a ditch together. And we, all of a sudden, these two Afghans, they jump into our ditch and they're both shot. It's like, oh shit. So working on getting a tourniquet on them, stuff like that. And then, I look up the road. I'm able to look out a little bit past the wall that was protecting us. And I was sending some rounds downrange just from the vicinity of where, the first fire came from. And I could see in the road, there's bodies in the road, are Afghans. So, okay. So calculated, I'm not running up there or else I'm going to get shot in the face too. Right now, there's nothing we can do. We will get them, but we got to get air on station. And so, as, minutes are ticking away and, there's sniper in the area as well and stuff like that, or multiple snipers. All of a sudden we hear that dreaded release of a mortar round. And then boom, and then another one, and boom, and they just shot far, and then they shot near. So what do they do next? You split the difference. Yeah. And so Frankie and I are doing that duck walk. Remember at MEPS when they're like, walk like a duck? I think they do it for situations like this because we couldn't poke our heads above the trench. So we're doing this duck walk, trying to make our way to the CCP. And we have 2 injured Afghans with us. We make it to the CCP. I see Joe out there. Joe's, like over here. And he's the senior medic on the ground. Dude saved so many lives that day. But, so we go to the first CCP and, there's, it's chaotic, gunfire everywhere and stuff like that. And then you hear eagle down, eagle down, eagle down. It's like, uh-oh. And then another radio call, eagle down, eagle down, eagle down. It's like, this is not good.
What does that mean for the
friendlies? U.S. Casualty, killed or wounded. Nobody knows yet.
These are your guys.
Yeah. So we're starting to get these calls and eagle down. And it's like, oh shit, we just lost the initiative. And while we were at the CCP, it's like, okay, we need to get back to the road part so we can start to recover. Number one, there was Americans that were cut off, but we can start to recover, get our boys and also our Afghan partners and conduct a withdrawal so we can start dropping bombs on them because we're doing show of forces, but we couldn't drop any bombs because a radio call came out and said, they're in your guys' lines. We don't know who is who. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, so, as, we're at the first CCP and we're patching guys up and there's a couple guys that are already dead. How you separate them, put them in a different room, stuff like that. And then all of a sudden the whole CCP lights up. The entire courtyard is just rounds are coming in, impacting off of walls. We're taking fire from everywhere. And it's like, where did these guys come from? And they made one mistake. They were far enough. They were engaging us from about 80 meters away. And it's like, well, there's no friendlies in that area. Drop. And so we had leveled those compounds, but we couldn't stay at this one anymore because we were still taking fire from different areas and nobody could figure out where it was coming from. So we had to take our casualties and basically sprint with them back through the fatal funnel again to another compound because we couldn't get aircraft to land in this area either to start getting the dead and wounded out. And so the casualty across the road, the Afghans were waving us over to it. And so it's like, okay, we got to get to this. We got to get to this compound. And so we're bringing, we're carrying guys and stuff like that over equipment and running back and grabbing more stuff and running over there. And then it was like, okay. And by then, one of the bodies that was in the road was Bez Mula, and we were able to recover him. But now we're dropping bombs. We've got separation. We have Apaches that are coming in doing just crazy work. There was fast movers. It was our JTAC. Man, combat controllers those dudes are freaking phenomenal.
Yeah, they're lifesavers.
They're absolutely, those guys, I owe my life multiple times.
Yeah.
But But yeah, he's just orchestrating this thing above us of lead and bombs just coming down on people. And it's like, all right, men, weapons, and equipment, right? So, all right, well, fuck weapons, fuck equipment. Are we up on men? Head count. We're missing 4 guys.
U.S.?
No.
Oh, okay.
Afghan. So it's like, shit. It's like, we got to go back. No one gets left behind. No one. So it's like, okay, where was the last time we saw, these guys? Like, we had casualties at the first CCP. So we ran back to the CCP. And sure enough, there was one guy that was killed on another side of a wall that people didn't see in the chaos of getting bodies out of there and wounded and dead out of there. And then there was another one that was already put in an Afghan Humvee. Okay, so we got 2. And I look around and I said, where's Abe? And nobody knows where Abe is at. Well, Abe, Jawed, Basmula, Khan, and myself were all at the very front when the third ambush happened that day. A 16-hour to 18-hour firefight. And so it's like, last time I saw Abe was 500 meters up the road at that bridge where we first got ambushed. It's like, fuck. Okay. And then the commandos came up and they said, our sergeant major is missing. The guy that was talking to Abe and I, remember when it's like, shit. Okay. All right, we have to go back up there. It's like, absolutely not. I didn't, so there was an argument going on. I said, I'm not leaving Abe here. Like, I'm going back to get Abe. It's like, we're not risking lives to go back and get him. We got to wait until we can secure the area, blah, blah, blah. So I was running on adrenaline and I was like, well, I'm going back to get him. And so JTAC comes up and he's like, I got a plan. He said, we're going to get one pass at this. But he said, the Apaches are going to do a gun run up this road. And we're just going to take off running behind them. And I was like,
we're going to race an Apache on foot.
I was like, so what's the plan? He's like, yeah, you guys ready? I was like, yeah, it's a great plan.
That is the plan.
And so, yeah, Apache number 1 comes in, starts its run. Apache number 2, we get up and we just start sprinting down the road. And I remember I was like, God, leg, please don't fail me now. And so, we get to the bridge and we're taking pop shots here and there, but you can tell it's the old over the head, kind of thing, because it's just sporadic and all over the place. And as long as those Apaches are circling around, nobody wants to mess around with that. We get up to the bridge and I look to my right in the ditch and that's where Abe was. Yeah. Yeah. But, and then the commando sergeant major was right next to him. So, now we got to get him out. So yeah, a body that's, covered in blood, very, very slippery, and we're trying to pull him out of a 5-foot ditch. And all the while, like there's just chaos going on around us. I'm not sure how many rounds were coming in, but we were sending a lot of rounds out covering fire. And, we get him out of the ditch. And, got him to the helicopter. That was it.
Is that the operation where for that action, is that where the Silver Star came from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't bring anybody back though.
No, I know. I was just curious if actions on. So you lost both of those guys, and you mentioned the Eagle down over the radio. Did you guys lose any U.S. personnel?
No. So the casualty count at the end was 4 U.S. WIA, 8 Afghan KIA, and 12 Afghan WIA.
Okay.
So we got hemmed up pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But whether it's Afghan math or not, I'm not sure. But count was over 400 Taliban fighters were killed.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't prove it.
Yeah.
I didn't go by and touch each body, but this came from NDS, which means it's probably wrong.
What does NDS stand for?
It's their like their version of the FBI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they would go out on missions with us.
Yeah.
We would, usually have a couple NDS guys with us with the commandos because they had arrest authorities,
Yeah.
whereas in the military did not. So
Yeah.
you would bring law enforcement with you.
Okay.
But yeah, that mission did a lot for me. So in the very beginning, I said it was a mission that changed my life, and it did. But when we were going back for Abe and the commando sergeant major, and even the 2 commandos before then, no Afghans went with us.
Wow.
It was just us. But what that did for me, that's not a dig on the Afghans. I have brothers, that are still there. But, and I shed plenty of tears for Abe. And some people would say, well, why? He's an Afghan. Still my fucking brother. But what that did for me was that solidified, I guess maybe that's the correct word, I don't know. But that solidified one thing that U.S. service members are willing to fight and die for, and that's no one gets left behind. No one.
When you say it's not a dig on Afghans, why is that your perspective on it?
Because I've had people make comments, well, if they're not willing to go back and get their own, then why do you guys care? And I don't agree with that statement at all, because we went to war together. We were brothers.
I agree with caring about it, or mourning the loss of the guys that you're fighting with.
Yeah.
But I also think 2 things can be true at once. I do look at that as kind of a dig on Afghans for not going, though.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I mean, that's just how I look at it. Like, I think they should have gone. It doesn't mean that you don't care about losing Abe and the command sergeant major, but I do think that reflects poorly on the Afghan fighters that chose not to go.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. I just try not to go to that place in my head because, Abe would have been the first one running down that road.
Yeah.
And Abe saved my life plenty of times.
Yeah.
So the reason why I say it's not a dig on all Afghans is because I've had my life saved by Afghans.
Yeah, no, I mean specific to the ones that could have gone and didn't.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
But I just, for me, because I have had my life saved by Abe a few times and other, Afghan counterparts that they literally saved my life.
Yeah.
That's why I always, maybe a dig on Afghans isn't the right. What I mean is I'm not talking about all Afghans. I'm just talking about that situation.
Sure. Yeah.
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 So I guess maybe I got to word it a little bit different.
That's part of it is sorting through it, right?
Yeah.
One line at a time, I guess. All right. So I appreciate you sharing all that. I know it's a heavy operation, one that, as you said, changed your life. But I know that the viewer will appreciate you getting into the details on that. And I think it highlights the kind of the dichotomy or duality of what going to war with host nation counterparts entails, and it's complex and yet simple at the same time. But before that, and a while back, you mentioned fighting what you guys were convinced were Iranians. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm probably completely wrong, but in Faryab on the 2018-2019 deployment, we went out to Faryab to assist the company out there doing clearance operations, and it was a nasty area. 10th group, after we left, 10th group had a sergeant major that was killed out there and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a lot of injuries came from that area, but I always used to think, I was like, right on the Iranian border, it's like, how much you want to bet these guys are all Iranian soldiers that are just...
Was that the gist of your your theory as to why that was the case, or was there anything else, intelligence or otherwise, that?
No, probably. Yeah, it was just the gist of the, the theory and guys talking and stuff like that. So
Did they seem any more competent from a fighting standpoint than what you were used to?
So different groups did,
Yeah.
but there was one group where they were literally, I'll never forget it. We were mounted and we were heading out to whatever site, and these guys would like jump out of spider holes and hip charge, RG, up armor fighting vehicles, like hip firing AKs. So no, not them. It was kind of like, okay, well, I guess I got a Mark 19, so
Yeah.
it's going to make some quick work, you know? But there was other times, but yeah, no, as far as the Iranian thing goes, I think it was more the conspiracy theories in my mind where I was like, how much you want to bet half of these guys are Iranian soldiers, kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but probably not. So.
Yeah. And that was your last deployment, right?
No. So, I left 2019 as a Green Beret, and then I went back for 9 months in 2020 and 9 months in 2021
As a contractor?
Yeah, I was a counter threat advisor, so IEDs and UAS and stuff like that.
Can you say for who?
Yeah, Khaki Wexford.
Okay.
So
I've never heard of them. I'm a little out of the loop.
Yeah, it was
contractor wise too, but
yeah, I was a jet contractor, and so it's amazing, amazing job, and it's basically you're a contractor ODA kind of,
Oh, wow.
it's.
Well, so can you walk through kind of the transition out of when you decided to finally pull Chocks, why, and at that time, and how that worked?
Yeah, so when I decided to retire from the Army was in 2019. And then, like I said, I went through, the one incident that I talked about earlier. But I realized I need to get control over my life. I'm kind of, Afghanistan for me, for 7th Group is done. I just need some sort of balance. I need to change something up. I'm just like, I really need to get control over things. And so I decided to, so when you're on a COAD or a continue on active duty waiver, I can literally go up anytime and say, okay, my leg can't handle this anymore. And so then the waiver expires and you're medically retired.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and I already had 23 years at that point. My passion was, serving in Afghanistan, even though as a 7th Group guy, it's, South and Central America. And I do every place I've gone to, I've met people that I just, love them to death and love working with them, whether it's the Colombians, the Peruvians, the El Salvadorians, the Afghans, Hondurans. That's why I joined Special Forces, was to work in that environment.
Real quick, of all of the different host nation forces that you've worked with, does one stand out as being the most competent?
Yeah, Colombia.
Really?
Yeah.
By far? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty. The Kandahar in Afghanistan were decent, but the Colombians, it's just
like on our level or comparable?
In some aspects, and again, I can't wait to see the reviews on this, but in some aspects better.
Really?
And what I mean by that is jungle warfare.
Well, that makes sense. We've been fighting in the desert for 25 years.
In the jungle, we went through a training course with the Colombian SF guys, and they were the instructors.
Yeah.
And these dudes were so good in the jungle.
That's cool.
It was, we were a bunch of elephants. They were like, the FARC would have killed you guys 400 times over again by now.
Sweet.
It's like, oh, that sucks. Well, that's why we're allies.
Yeah.
So it depends on the environment.
Yeah. If you took, not that there's a way to do it, but since we talked about time machines once already, if you could take like 1969, 70 frogmen and, from Vietnam or MAC V SAW guys and put them in there, it'd probably be a different fucking story, but Same with, if you took them to the fucking desert, they're probably going to be tripping over their own dick and looking foolish. But
yeah.
All right. So that so you're able to transfer out quick, and then you end up, where did Tip of the Spear Landmine Removal as a company or organization rather, and Tip of the Spear book come from?
So actually, the book, Tip of the Spear, it actually came from journaling. And so I was finding a lot of therapy or
Cathartic.
Yeah, through writing, just journaling. And so I started the 2017 trip to Afghanistan, to where at nights, I just started just putting stuff into this Word document, and one page turns into 100, turns into 1,000 pages of just stuff.
Yeah.
And like I could have a dream, wake up, remember something, and then jot it down. Just boom, like I don't want to forget that. And then the 2018 trip, I decided it's like, well, let me read through all this. Like, what is all this crap? Because when you get to that point to where you're like, I guess that's really it up to this point.
Yeah.
And so I start to go through it and start to, kind of adjust it the way things happen, in the book. And so as I'm reading through it, I was like, man, it's kind of put a lot of work into this. I want to see what people think. So I sent it to my dad, my sisters. And of course they're going to be like, yeah, well, my dad, not of course. My dad will be like, sucks, But no.
Fail, try again.
Yeah, but they were like, this is great. Like, there's a lot of lessons here. Like, there's a lot here. And then test drove it with some buddies on the ODA that you want to know if you're fucked up or not.
Yeah.
Tell another team guy.
Yeah.
You'll find out real quick.
Yeah.
And the response I got, I was like, okay, so what do you guys think? They're like, dude, you got to make this a book. So got in touch with this editor through an author. Her name is Lynn Vincent. And great.
Indianapolis.
Yeah, great woman. Love her to death. But I didn't know how to write a book or anything. So I just started Googling military authors and just started sending out emails left and right. And she reaches back to me. She's like, well, hey, look, in the middle of this book called USS Indianapolis, don't got a lot of time, but let me connect you with somebody. So she connected me with this, with this editor, Mike Yorkie. And so him and I start going back and forth for almost a year, just really going from, just word vomit to what you have right now. And then did the DOD review, everything like that. And then it came time. Greg Johnson, he's another friend of mine. He said, hey, there's a publisher that read the manuscript and yeah, they want it. It's like, okay. So what do I do? And they're like, do you want this to be a book or not? It's like, oh, this is real. They're like, yeah, DOD review's done. They're going to publish it for you. Everything. Do you want your story out there or not? Last chance. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so.
Really?
No. So, of course, who else but the old man is like, really? He kind of shakes his head. Like, okay, really what? Because I just didn't realize I raised such a selfish son.
Jesus Christ.
And I was like,
your dad's fucking atomic elbow from the top rope, like
over the phone,
all the time.
Over the phone, and you feel it. It's like, what? And I was like, what? And he goes, your story can help so many people, but you're so worried about what you think other people think about you that you don't want.
Yeah.
You don't want to publish this book that could potentially help save somebody's life that's in some dark places like you went through. And he's like, wow, like, it's pretty selfish of you. And he goes, I need you to do me a favor. He said, I need you to quit thinking you're so badass when you're not. He's like, let me let you in on a little secret. You're not as cool as you think you are. People don't go home and think about Ryan Hendrickson. He's like, get over yourself. Okay. And I was like, damn, You're absolutely right. I care more about what I think people are going to think about me. And they're like, who?
Yeah.
Ryan Hendrickson? Never heard of her.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
She's probably hot.
Yeah, she's probably hot, kind of thing. And so we did. We went through with it. And July 7th, 2020, it published. And that was also the day, good friend of mine, he was on the Boglin mission. He was also, he got the Silver Star as well, but he killed himself July 7th, 2020. And that's when I was just like, damn, dude. But that's when that, tip the spear, that's when it dropped.
Yeah.
And it's not a chest pounding war story. It's a story of survival, but it's surviving, your own mental health, your own mental minefields. That's what it's about. And there's some cool parts in it, some travel and stuff like that, but I've got knocked down, and I just keep getting knocked down because it's life. Just when I went through that with my leg, it's like, wow, I just went through the hardest thing I ever went through in my life. Life is easy. I got that out of the way at 32. I'm good. Yeah. And then life is like, hey, watch this. Yeah. I am just going to clobber you and clobber you and clobber you. And a lot of people aren't prepared for that. And that's when a lot of really bad shit happens, is because you just overcome this catastrophic event in your life and you think it's like, okay, it can't get any worse than that. And then it does. Yeah. And you're not prepared for it because you didn't understand that regardless of what you do, say, or anything like that, life isn't fair at times. Yeah. And life can be very ugly.
For sure. Yeah.
And so that was the book, and is very therapeutic, for me, that I just turned in. Now it's what people can read about. But as far as the NGO,
yeah. You started it, right?
Yeah. So Tip of the Spear, landmine removal. Number one, we'll go back to about 3 hours ago when I said I'm not the brightest out there.
Is it a 501 or is it?
Yeah, it's a 501. Okay. So it's a 501c3. It's a nonprofit. But Tip of the Spear, landmine removal, and people are like, but isn't your book? I was like, yes. I just didn't have an imagination. Yeah. So, well,
good news. I have a book called Team Dog, right? Yeah. I have a dog food company called Team Dog, and my online training is called Team Dog. They all three should have their own fucking names, and they don't. So fucking high five. I'm an even bigger idiot about that.
But so so back up a little bit. It's June, July of 2021. And I've just been, in Afghanistan about 9 months, and, we were closing down different bases. We started with Fob Dwyer, and then it was New Antoinette, Calf, and then now it's Bath. And so we're shutting down Bath. We're closing down Bath. And, General Miller had ordered all non-essentials, like, hey, you guys will be leaving country from Bath, not coming to NKC. Like, if you're coming to NKC, you're either a shooter or something to do with aircraft.
I got a level with it. You're throwing a lot of TLAs out there that I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
NKC?
You know what a TLA is? It's a 3-letter acronym, which is in itself a TLA. Oh. I'm just busting your balls.
Oh. So New Kabul Complex. The airfield there, the international airport, I guess you would say, which is where we were going to conduct the withdrawal from. Lots of questions surrounding that, but it is what it is. So I left from Bagram. And so now Bagram's closed. Basically everything in Afghanistan's closed but NKC. And then, the withdrawal happens the way it does. We have 13 heroes that lost their lives in Abbey Gate. But, Afghanistan, this period in time is done. And so I'm sitting back at home, and it's like, well, now what? And that's my whole military career. And again, this is, a lot of those emotions from, 2019, probably never going back to Afghanistan again as a 7th grouper, to, now it's like Afghanistan's done. It is done. And so it's just like, this life and this idea that I had, for 20 some odd years in the military with Afghanistan. And now all of a sudden you're just like, all the familiar questions. Now what was it for? What was, now the leg seems to hurt just a little bit more, and stuff like that, which is all mental. It's not, but it's like, gosh, man, like who's Ryan Hendrickson now? Like, what is my purpose? Like, I don't even know what to do. And so, as the months go by, all of a sudden now it's February 2022. And, we're watching this buildup for months of the Russian military on the Belarusian-Ukrainian border and on the Russian-Ukrainian border. And we're watching this buildup, and they're calling it military exercises. Kind of what China's doing with Taiwan right now. Anybody pays attention to trends. But anyways, so watching this build up, and then February 24th, 2022, Russia escalates the conflict in Ukraine and initiates the full-scale invasion. So this was the conflict that had started in 2014 with Crimea and the Donbass and the Russian separatist units and stuff like that. Well, now it's a full-scale invasion, and it's the special military operation, I guess, as Putin calls it. So I'm watching on the news, and I'm just like, number one, this is 2022. Like, what is going on? This is a near-peer conflict. These are two armies going at it. And I just kept feeling this nagging urge, like, there's got to be something I can do. Like, and there's probably a lot of people that were glued to their TVs, especially in the special operations community, that were thinking the same thing. Like, even if it was a brief second, like, man, I wonder if there's a way I can help or some way I can, So this carries on for, a couple days, and now it's March. And I was talking to my buddy, David Cunningham, and his family, they founded the missionary organization called YWAM, Youth with a Mission. So they have campuses all over the world, where one of their campuses is in Kyiv. And so as we, we're talking, and I feel like there's a way I can go over and help, but I don't even know how. Like, what would I even do? And so he starts talking about the majority of the missionaries had evacuated, but there was this group of kids, 18 to like 22-year-old, that stayed behind, and they were just driving around areas that the Russians were moving into and evacuating women and children and the elderly. And he's like, yeah, they're going to get themselves killed. This is all new for them. And I was just like, do you think I can get over there and help them? We kind of paused for a moment. And he's like, yeah, you want to go to Ukraine? So I asked my job, and they were like, no, absolutely not. You got a clearance and all this other stuff. I was like, well, I can't even do it by taking, leave without pay. And they're like, no. It's like, yeah, here's my 2 weeks, And so I head over there in the middle of March, and, and the plan was, it was Robin Sage all over again. It was like, all right, you're going to fly into Poland. This guy is going to meet you at this hotel. He's going to pick you up, take you to the border. Another guy's going to pick you up at the border, take you across to a safe house. Then someone's going to pick you up at the safe house, and another safe house, and then you'll be in Kyiv. And I was like, okay, yeah, I've kind of done a scenario like that called Robin Sage. Let's do it. So fly into Poland. And, this like 1 week, I just start throwing shit in a bag, medical supplies, whatever I can. I don't know what I'm walking into. I've never been in a near-peer conflict before. It's always been an insurgency. And so, get into Poland, and, it's just like all finely tuned plans that I care so much about, but not everybody does. Day he's supposed to pick me up. It's like, no, it'll be tomorrow. Then it'll be tomorrow. all right. Yeah, meet me here at the park. It's like, okay, so the park in the central Krakow, Poland. And so I go there and got my bags and everything like that, dragging them all the way there. And it's snowing, it's just miserable. And he doesn't show up. And I can't get a hold of him. And I'm just sitting there. I was like, what in the heck? And then my friend that also was communicating with this guy, he's like, yeah, I don't know. Then 5 hours later, this dude, shows up, opens up the door, and is like, 5 hours of cigarette smoke just roll out of his van. This Eastern European annoying music's playing. And the dude's just like, it's like he's just jacked up on Ritalin and Red Bulls. Just like, you ready to do this? But he speaks Ukrainian or Russian or whatever. It was either Ukrainian or Russian, but usually they both speak both. Yeah. So I'm assuming through what is coming out of his mouth that I assume he's telling me to put my bags in the van. So open up the door, throw the bags in. He doesn't, there's no yelling or screaming. So apparently I was right. And we start heading towards the border. So it was just awkward because he is just sitting there. This music is blaring. He's screaming to talk to me over the music, chain smoking, like insane. And just I have zero idea what he's saying, but I'm just like, okay, he's laughing, so I'll laugh. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, oh man, yeah. Don't laugh then. Like, finally just get there. I was like, get me out of this freaking van, man. This guy is insane.
I'm always curious, Ryan. Like, we might have had discussions about this, that guys just, although you're the best qualified guy to go back to a conflict zone, there's this mentality like they just can't shake it. Like, I just need more of it. I have this lack of traumatic stress in my life. I can't wait to get blown up again. And your altruistic reasons by going back over there, do you ever feel like that? Like, man, why am I geared like this? Is it just because I'm a warrior? Because I have this protector gene in me? Is it this crazy, thread that binds all of us, no matter what branch of service we come in, like from all the trauma in our childhoods, which we've all written about and barfed our lives into 300 pages on Amazon.
Yeah.
What is it that drives people to go back and do that? Especially if you're not doing it for money, like a mercenary.
Yeah, I was, as you would say, high risk humanitarian pro bono. I know for me, as cliche as this is going to sound, but this is the only real way I can sum it up. When I was thinking about what is dragging me to want to go to Ukraine so badly, like, why am I sitting here just, it's keeping me up at night. I'm aching because I'm just thinking about I could be doing something else. I realized and I remembered what our motto is as Green Berets, De Oppressor Labor, to free the oppressed. And that's ingrained in us. And so I joined Special Forces for that reason there. Like I said, there's a lot of jobs that involve, being the best of the best in the world at shooting and CQB and stuff like that. Well, I think of Special Forces Green Berets as some of the best in the world at unconventional warfare, working by, with, and through train, advise, assist, force, multiply. Like, that's why I got into that world. And so I believe that I was seeing a need, these missionaries that were at this, that were at the missionary compound in Kyiv, driving to these areas with no situational awareness in a combat zone, doing what they thought was best. And I thought, number one, kind of like you were saying, it is that wanting that adrenaline back. It does, it is kind of getting back in the mix again, even though I'm a non-combatant. But number two, I really believe it was about getting back over. And what I realize now, looking back, it is getting over there and helping people, because, or else there would have been, there wouldn't have been really any reason, unless that was my goal, to go over there as an unarmed, high-risk humanitarian. And so and so I get to the border and we get picked up. I get picked up. And first safe house we get to, it's getting dark, and curfew at that time was 11 p.m. And you didn't want to get caught out after curfew in the initial stages because they were also dealing with Russian saboteurs all over the country. And so, we get to the first safe house, it's 11 p.m. and the safe house is packed. And I remember, the guy was like, hey, find a place to sleep, and then I'll see you in the morning. Okay. And I remember, there wasn't there wasn't very many people that spoke English, but there was a couple. And I just sat there all night long listening to their accounts and their stories of the horrors that they were moving east, or they were moving west to get away from. And I was moving east to go to that area. And I felt very comfortable in that moment because I knew that regardless if I had been trained or not for Ukraine, I had been trained mentally for that exact scenario, for that exact, like the old saying, we run to the sound of bullets. Well, I was heading into the chaos that these people were telling me horror stories about, like Bucha and Irpin and some of the stuff that happened in these suburb areas. And so I get to, I finally make it to Kyiv, link up with, this group of missionaries. And the leader, she's a dear friend of mine now, but she's just a young kid, But I didn't go in there kicking doors as, American Green Beret. I'm here. I saved the day. This is what we're going to do. I started to work myself into the group, over days. And, hey, if they have questions on this or maybe suggest some things here, it wasn't until later on after they were like, wow, yeah, this is it. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. He's talking about, I've gained that trust, that rapport, that respect through compassion and empathy, as an American for what they were going through. And I came out there to help them. I mean, day one, they were like, can you drive a manual transmission? Yeah. It's like, cool. You're driving. Yeah,
I'm not a millennial. I can do that.
It's like, you're driving this van and we're doing a run. And we did. We had to use back roads and, blackout and stuff like that. And blackout without nods is very, very hard driving by the running lights.
Shit, I can imagine.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucking dicey.
But we'd picked up these women and children from this area, and you can just see the explosions in the outskirts, like 15 kilometers away.
That's intense.
And it was just like, yeah. So I spend this time from March to May with this missionary group. Well, around the April timeframe, as the Russians started to conduct their withdrawal to the east out of, the suburbs of Kyiv, like, again, Bucha and Irpin and stuff like that, civilians started to come back into their homes to see what was left. And we were actually one of the first groups of Westerners that was allowed into Bucha because we had a reporter with us that had the government pass, and Zelensky said, I want the world to see the massacre here, the bodies in the streets and everything like that. So, I mean, it happened. It definitely happened. But
you saw all that?
Yeah. But we, as civilians started to make their way back to their homes, they started to hit the landmines and, booby traps and stuff like that were put in place, most likely because the Russians didn't want a counteroffensive or a pursuit. So what am I going to do? Landmines are for train denial, right? And so I'm going to deny this train to you without you having to clear it, so you can't chase me down. And we get ticked, we get troops in contact from the rear. And so Ukraine's response to this was, we're fighting a war right now. So Ukraine has something called the territory defense. And the territory defense is like a neighborhood watch, but with like RPGs, PKMs, and stuff like that. Yeah. And a little bit more trigger happy.
So like Chicago.
Yeah, probably. And so they started to form these sapper teams, these demining teams with guys that were just like, I don't even know what a landmine is. Like, oh, well, you're a soldier. This is your duty, and you're also your village, so go out and do great things. And so I found myself, I was like, well, I mean, I'm not Liam Neeson. Like, I have a special set of skills, blah, blah, blah. But I have an idea about, clearance operations and finding and getting rid of IEDs and some landmines, more IEDs than landmines in Afghanistan, but I still had experience with both. And so I started helping these, guys out, the training part. And then it went to advising them. And now all of a sudden it's like, hey, can you come out to make sure we're doing it right on the minefields? Now we're assisting them. And through training, we're starting to get more guys. So I'm doing the entire SF mission as this unpaid humanitarian that just quit his job that was paid, very nice pay, and headed over without a clear goal. But what I did, and it's the same thing that special operators or really anybody in the military is good at, is I'm going to find work, and I'm going to find a way to benefit or to make this situation better. You're always improving your foxhole, right? Well, this, I saw a need, and so I just started talking. And then next thing you know, it's like, yeah, dude, absolutely. So now we're training via assisting. And before I left from that first trip, I started to see the need for equipment. So I would go home. So I went home and I was like, all right, let me, buy some equipment for these guys. I'll just, I'll see if anybody's interested in helping me. Maybe I can get, a couple $1,000 for detectors and stuff. And did a few posts, and I, brought in money. And so I started buying up equipment for them. And then I went back in August to September of 22. And I started getting with other units and training them up, and then training them on these detectors that I used in Afghanistan. And donating all this equipment over, then there'd be another unit. So I'd go home, and this time I was like, well, if people are going to donate to me, I need to make this beneficial for them as well. So we created the 501c3, so people got tax breaks for it. And then I just started, I went back in November to December of 22, doing the same thing again, brought over like 50 detectors, and trained a bunch of groups up on them, would help them out the best I could. Donate all the equipment over, and then here's another need. And so I've been going back and forth since the middle of March of 22. I think 8 trips now. I'm getting ready to go back over middle of November.
Oh, wow.
And I'll be home before Christmas, but I'm going back over about the middle of November. And then I'm just, bringing over more equipment. Got to give a buddy, Lee Shriver, he has supported us so much. Oh,
wow.
And so,
the actor, right?
Yeah. And so now there's a foundation. Him and his wife are board members, and they're giving us funds to buy an ambulance for our team.
Cool. They're board members of Tip of the Spear?
No. They're board members for the Ludwig Family Foundation. Okay. So they're going to purchase 2 vehicles for us, a 4-wheel drive pickup truck, an ambulance, and 25 detectors. And so I'll buy, obviously, the vehicles in Europe, maybe Ukraine. That would make it so much easier at the border. But and then I'll bring the detectors over and link up with our unit, because now I have my own team of Ukrainian deminers over there, and wow. Yeah, they're their own NGO. They're their own Ukrainian charity, but they're supported by us. And so, and we just every trip we go over, it's just more farm fields and villages, just trying to get rid of these mines. But it's impossible. There's millions.
Now, when you go there, obviously you're bringing the equipment and donating it. Are you every trip training up more and more people on the equipment, and then are you actually going out and doing some of the demining also?
I was, yeah. So in 2023, we were on the minefields, but now the Ukrainians were like, hey, look, we have deminers. We need you to train them and equip them. I don't need you getting killed on a minefield.
Yeah. Your personal opinion on the United States, their involvement, whether it's sending money, boots on the ground, whatever, do you have an opinion on to what level any of that should be or is appropriate?
Oof. Yeah, I mean, I do. I just don't know if I have an opinion for millions of listeners.
What do you mean?
I just, yeah, I mean, as a U.S. ally, I do believe that Ukraine does need support. I do not believe that there should be U.S. boots on the ground in Ukraine. I believe the deterrent in the NATO countries of U.S. presence there should be. Okay, actually, I got what I believe. Sorry,
No, that's all right.
I got to tiptoe around it, man, because again, I work there.
Yeah.
But this is my belief. No, there should not be U.S. boots on the ground in Ukraine. Yes, the Ukrainians should be supported, but that support should come with a extreme amount of what's the word I'm looking for?
Accountability. Yeah.
Cradle to grave, end users. Every single dollar, every single cent, every single piece of equipment, all of that needs to have. Like you want to hire, what were you saying? How many people? 300 or
3,000.
3,000
Yeah.
people at GAO.
3,000. You want to hire that amount of people? Then do it with people that are holding this military equipment and these monies. They're holding the end user accountable for them, so it doesn't get caught up in corruption. It doesn't get caught up in it just doesn't disappear.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say probably most veterans look at the level of accountability that exists within the U.S. military for night vision, for weapons, for top secret information, for everything. Is at such an extreme and anal retentive level where your career is over if you lose, a set of nods. Or I lost my fucking Mark 46. Well, you're fucked. You're out. Mm-hmm. To see then, us send all of that same equipment and billions of our tax dollars when veterans on the street, you can't get a fucking VA appointment for 3 months.
Yeah.
Like that just happened to me. Like I made an appointment last week. The first day they can get me in is December 31st for a fucking hernia. 3 months, right? Or close to it.
Yeah.
Half of the Southeast fucking decimated by storms, and we're sending all that fucking money and nobody knows where it's going.
Yeah. That's why it's such a sensitive topic for me. It's because I've also been, cornered with, well, why don't you use your efforts to help out here in the States? There's veterans that, need help. There's, the hurricane damage and anything like that. And, it's, obviously if there was a landmine problem in the United States, I'd be the first one. But the other thing our NGO does is, the purpose and the sense of service that it gave me when I was really lost after Afghanistan. If it helped me, then I'm thinking this could also probably help somebody else, another veteran. And so it is, unfortunately, the funding is the constraint, but it is a high-risk humanitarian role that, we do invite veterans into that want to get over and help. It doesn't have to just be demining. But it's so yes, I do understand what you're talking about when it comes to, all the money that's been sent over there. The best I can say on that is money being sent without accountability is wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely wrong.
Yeah. That's all I have to say about that.
I'm going to leave it at that.
All right. Another John says, speaking in general on the military, what changes would you like to see made?
In the military?
Yeah.
Damn, I wish you asked me about that. The government. Okay.
The government's fine. We can dovetail that onto it.
Changes in the military,
if any. I mean, if there's none, then none's fine. But
I would have to say, as far as the war fighting function of the military goes, I can only tell you from the U.S. Navy amphibious or F-16, F-15s being an ammo troop, loading bombs on them, or AC-130s, or as a Green Beret. And I think, my experiences that I've had in the military, especially our warfighting functions, is we're extremely lethal. And you could, quote unquote, fuck around and find out really fast. But when veterans or when service members are getting out and they're going over to the veteran, they're going from service members to veterans, there's a lot of, I guess, programs to help with the transition, but there's one thing that no one's ever been able to figure out yet, and that's how do we transition from always being switched on, and so that's the one thing, the adrenaline, and I don't know if there is a program that can even address it. I have no idea, but I just know, like we were talking about earlier, like that adrenaline rush, always searching out that adrenaline rush. And so helping veterans like post-conflict era or, because there's programs to help you get a job and there's programs to help you write resumes and stuff like that. But when all that's set aside and you're there with your own thoughts, and I know people are going to say, it's PTSD. Yeah, there's therapists for it and stuff like that. But there's one other level to it that I don't think is addressed when people are like, don't really have PTSD. I'm just so institutionalized by the military process that I think a little bit more could be paid to that. But I honestly, the military in general, like I don't really have any changes that I would make to the active duty military. It's all post service.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I'll throw a caveat in there for the government.
Yeah.
If I was king for a day, I would put in law that all presidential candidates get $10 million max to campaign with. Therefore, money can no longer buy elections. You each get $10 million. Now go out and win the American people. And then, once you become the nominee, then, the money would go up for a campaign and stuff like that. But you got $10 million. You got this, that panel of 25 Republicans, and it's who has the most money wins. And so
it's almost treat it like a professional sports team and a salary cap on it. Level the playing field.
Yeah, that's what I'd do if I was king for a day. But
amen. Scott, you got anything to add to that?
Government or military wise?
Government, I guess. Yeah. I mean, well, either one, I guess.
From the government, I think through 20 years of war and what we're doing now, and I agree with Ryan 100%. But we got to have people too at the administrative level that really back up those campaign promises. Navy's a great example. Love or hate whatever side of the aisle is, we need a strong Navy. Not just coming from a guy that thanks the Navy every day for a ride to and from, but if we're not building whatever class of ship for the future landscape of warfare, we are going to have problems. And so those programmatics have to be signed off on at the presidential level, and then really pushed down to the military industrial complex so they can start building. Because last time I checked, even after 2016, how many keels have been laid for new ships, for amphibs? I don't know. Not as many as were promised. So
Yeah.
And if we invested as much, or even let's just say a third of what we do transitioning veterans that we do, even for basic riflemen or basic sailors coming in for 10, 12-week programs to get them qualified, what if we just did a third of that? And we've made strides through Skill Bridge and other vocational programs, but we're not doing the things that Ryan's talking about. What about the spiritual transition, the physical, the psychological? These are important components that warriors develop throughout 4 years or 24 years in the military. And if we really give it a lot of lip service. So I think, at that level, organizationally, across all service branches, we have to be doing better. Otherwise, we're going to continue to be poor stewards of our history and continue to repeat the same mistakes.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the military goes, though, I mean, just get ready.
Yeah.
Because what we're seeing in Ukraine, it's, I'm not saying you're going to have a foreign country invading, the United States, but the world is a powder keg right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely unpredictable. Any moment could be a slip up that would lead into a conflict that the military is going to have to be ready for. It could be China, it could be Iran, it could be, Russia. I think North Korea is just all talk, but now Kim Jong-un's probably listening to this and he's like, oh yeah, check this out.
He is a big fan of the show. No, he's not. Can't be. No, I hear you. Man, what a fascinating story and life you've lived. Inspiring also, for you to have what happened to you in 2010 and, deploy time after time after time after that. And what you're doing now is super admirable. And like I said, just nothing short of inspiring. I appreciate you taking the time to come tell your story, for writing the book, for doing what you do now. And, is there anything that you want to throw in before did you want to?
I have to have this question answered while we're still rolling.
Yeah.
Mike Mullins made you a promise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He showed up to my hospital room. I got the pictures with him and everything. And he followed through with his promise. So,
impressive.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, his name is Mike. It's hard to.
And he's Navy.
Yeah. I mean, probably a great kisser too while he's at it. I noticed you brought me a coin. I have one for you, as well as a little Lucky Charms surprise treat in the black box. Thanks to John Johnson, Champion Choice Silver, for hooking us up with the buckles.
Oh, nice.
So if you can you get shit kickers on, or are those pretty rough to rock?
Those would be rough to rock on the right leg, but
either way, if you find yourself in the mood to throw on a buckle with some creased fucking blue jeans and a button-down top, would love to have a picture of you rocking it at some point or displayed somewhere or whatever.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you coming. Anything you want to add, plug, or?
I definitely appreciate you having me on, number one. But number two, these platforms, I mean, this is so important because it allows veterans, I know there's veterans, first responders and stuff like that, but in my case specifically, it allows veterans to come on here and to have a voice on a very large platform that reaches, millions of people. And so, and getting these stories out, maybe someone listens to it and it can change that one person's life or help that one person out, because every single person has a story and they have experiences, and you can learn something from anybody as long as you're listening. We hear everybody all the time, but we don't actually listen. And so everybody has a story, and veterans, especially in the veteran community, that story could help possibly change somebody's life. And so platforms like this, that bring people on, and like me, I can't thank you enough for that platform to be able to, just share my message, to hopefully it reaches one person that's hurting, because we never went to war alone, and you don't have to go at this war, in your mind alone, because you're never alone, and nobody gets left behind. So don't allow yourself to be left behind.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that, and it's a pleasure to have you on. I appreciate you coming.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Scott, you got any alibis? Anything to add?
Always happy to be for the hangman.
Yeah.
I like that Ryan did refer to this as a country of Texas. I don't know if that was a slip or a truism, but
there's a little bit of truth.
Always good to hang, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good to have you for sure. To the listener, just as always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you want some bonus footage before we started the show, tune into the Patreon page, plus ad-free episodes and some other swag and whatnot. But for the existing Patreon members, thank you for the support. Thank you for the questions. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you didn't, you can choke yourself. Until next time, this is Mic Drop.